How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on VTWProductions.com and YouTube.com. Your favorite show hosts are still
Fenarian
and Willisell, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week. But first of all, if you'd like to get involved with the show, it's very easy to do so. You can send us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord channel, most readily accessed by clicking on the link, which should be included in the description underneath the show archive on YouTube. Alternatively, you can go to vtwproductions.com and click on the show logo on any show post that you can find there.
And just by the way, before we get to the show and get to our main topic later in the show, I just want to put a disclaimer. We have somebody that's half Chinese on the show, so nothing I say is racist.
Oh, wow.
So therefore, we cannot be racist.
Do I have to just sit around with a bucket on my head for the back half of the show?
I feel like Crowder's lawyer.
Yeah.
Half Asian commentator, Volasel.
Wow. So, I don't know how to actually launch off from that.
That was Ari making sure to deal a kidney punch to you before the show really got going.
Absolutely was. Alright, so let's just dive straight into it. And my week this week... lots and lots of work because everyone's gotten free money. Oh, and apparently Microsoft Store is doing a thing and hijacking the show feed. There we go.
Huh?
Microsoft apps and the Microsoft Store appear to be having shoes at the moment.
Yes, it just decided it was going to throw up all over the place and get in the way of the stream. Okay, there we go. That's fixed. So yeah, it's basically been open season for work lately, unfortunately, because yeah, free money for everyone means it's all got to be dumped into the poker machines as quick as possible.
Or the barman.
But
hey, he needs some big tips. He hadn't been able to work for a while.
they got a fair bit through their takeaway services, at least. Yeah, so my week largely has been just little bits and pieces here and there. Also, Salt, and I'll come to the Salt in a moment. I did have one friend who convinced me to dust off Monster Hunter World last night. And on the PC version, I had forgotten, basically, how to play that game. And he says, okay, well, I just need to farm one thing to finish this weapon off. Okay, fine. Didn't tell me what it was. It was Kirin.
That's a rude way to reintroduce someone to the game, as I found last time when Ari had come back from hiatus to join us for Kirin.
Kirin is a rather rude wake-up call. Whoa.
Yeah. Monster Hunter World is a game where you can't just jump back in. You need a mission or 5.
There is no other game like it. There's no other game with the same pace.
No.
Even things which have tried to be clones like Dauntless, then they don't have the same feel to them. You need to have the Monster Hunter circuit engaged in order to play that game.
Dauntless. It's like if Monster Hunter had everything that was good sucked out of it and packaged for mass market appeal. Ugh. Also, on really laggy servers.
Yes.
Now, I don't know how close God Eater is to it, but my experience has been that you can't transfer many skills from other games to Monster Hunter.
No, God Eater is a lot faster, generally. A lot more hacky.
Yeah. You can move the speed of some areas or some bosses in the Souls series, maybe, but that's about the only thing I can think that has combat that methodical and slow.
As a dedicated greatsword user, that's exacerbated for me pretty significantly.
All right. What I did notice, however, is No Man's Sky just put out a patch again this week too, which adds derelict freighters, which is this bit here. So that's probably actually what I'm just going to throw up on the stream. Hopefully, I can find one and have a look around in it.
Yep. Oh, you can upgrade your living ship's components now in the patch. You can spend nanites to do it instead of, just having to farm the S-class upgrade for the type of upgrade you want.
Oh, good.
You just spend nanites now, so you can just go kill animals for an hour and then go sit for 4 hours feeding them one at a time to the nanite guy.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like fun.
No.
That sounds like the sort of thing you do in an MMO.
It's pretty much what we're working with here.
Yeah, I'm halfway through doing the Living Shift quest myself, and it is painful.
It is MMOE as crap. Everything about the living ship is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I got mine.
The reward is nice.
Yeah, the ship is fairly good. It's an S-class ship, and its components are unique. But it's a pain in the butt, man.
Yeah.
And if you have the Steam version, you can't cheat, because Steam always knows what time it is.
Yes, it does.
So because there's a timer on it.
Am I lagging, or are you guys really talking over each other?
We're bumping into each other.
Yeah.
Although I hear him start halfway through my sentences, and I imagine he's hearing the same.
Yeah. There's a bit of a lag in there as well. Ari's internet's just been weird today.
Yeah, it died twice before the show, and there was a thunderstorm outside that just stopped.
Yeah. Okay, so according to this, every system has a wreck in it. You just need to find it. Also, you will probably die if you go in there unprepared. So I'm going to go to do exactly that. Because, great ideas.
This is the reason that Seraphis always makes fun of us.
It's not entertaining to watch someone who's competent.
It's true, they don't get many donations.
Yeah. What on earth is that? Hang on. There's a new thing. I must explore it, and it will probably chew my face off.
So yeah, other than the No Man's Sky patch, you're weak.
All right. So yeah, Monster Hunter World, that was a nice, fun little diversion. But my brother also got me to download again Orcs Must Die 2. And here's where the salt comes in, because Orcs Must Die 3 just launched.
I thought orcs were racist now.
I don't know. I'm not even going to try keep up with it. Let's just assume everything is racist at this point.
Well, yeah, that's sort of the philosophy that they're working with.
That is specifically why we don't care what is racist.
Exactly. So, for those who haven't played it, Orc Must Die is a action-oriented tower defense game where you've got a whole buttload of orcs just trying to get through a corridor, and you need to stop them with a variety of fun, wacky traps. Also with a hero who is probably as dense as 2 short planks. So it's a lot of fun. And I was really looking forward to playing the third one because they've opened up the world, they've added new characters, they've added a whole bunch of new mechanics. But somebody didn't look into the crystal ball of everyone with any sort of common sense ever, and they signed an exclusivity deal with Stadia.
Stadia?
So, Orcs Must Die 3 is exclusive to Stadia for the foreseeable future. You know, that thing that nobody wanted and nobody plays.
And, yeah. Until people bring it up, I forget it existed.
Yeah, I know, and a lot of people do. Apparently there was a broadcast about that Google put out, because here's the future of Stadia. We've just launched Orcs Must Die 3. And here's a bunch of games that were released 4 years ago for everyone else. You know, the thing that Stadia's been doing pretty much constantly. So yeah, I'm actually extremely salty about that because I was really looking forward to playing that. So I'll have to content myself with the second game instead. Beyond that, not a whole lot really else to talk about during the week, except I had a free day early on. So I ended up just sitting down and watching the entire run of the live action series for The Tick on Amazon.
That's an interesting way to spend a day off.
I think it was a day well spent. It is actually quite good. They've kept a lot of what made The Tick good. They've changed a few things, like Arthur's suit actually does things now, instead of being basically pajamas with moth wings stuck to it.
Yeah, it's like, wasn't it just like blue spandex and 2 little googly antennas?
Oh, that's the Tick's costume. Arthur is
Oh,
the Moth Boy.
Oh, right. Oh, right. Other one.
Yeah.
I've not seen the Tick in ages.
The Tick is wonderfully dense. It's hinting that he's an alien or something at this point, but every time it comes up, they bring up his amnesia as to where he exactly came from. It's something different. Like at one point he's thinking he's a robot, and he's dissuaded of that. So I'm just going to boil it down, and we'll just assume that for now the Tick is an idiot. Because he is.
With the largest chin in the universe.
Yeah, unfortunately you can't find anyone in real life with a chin like that.
Sad.
Sad. So yeah, if you're looking for something just dumb, fun, and goofy to watch on a given day, I highly recommend that. Go and watch the live-action Tick. Even if you're not familiar with the original source material. I actually kind of want to go back and watch the original again now. Which, let's face it, has so many jokes in it that just went straight over kids' heads. In the best possible way.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember anything specific about the Tick. I remember generally thinking it was funny.
Yeah.
But this seems to happen every time I try to recall that show. I should poke at it again at some point. I probably say that every time I try to recall the show too and never get around to it.
The trick is actually
he's
finding
sort of-
somewhere to watch it.
He's the example of the dumb hero who is still genuinely heroic.
Yeah.
Like he's somehow, despite the fact that he doesn't have two brain cells to rub together, nevertheless his moral compass never wavers.
Yeah, he's always on the side of justice.
Said in the hammiest way possible.
Yes, you can't. There is insufficient ham at any other time. Arthur tends to be the brains, but he's just a regular guy. And fortunately, a lot of the other superheroes in this setting tend to be some variety of whack job or idiot. So Arthur comes across as the only sane man in a completely mad universe.
Which is basically a superpower.
It is. Like, he's the only one in a room of superheroes who will be talking any sense. Everyone else, yeah, it's just... everything's pushed through the superhero lens, or they're just dumb as two bricks, or, whatever. So, that's honestly about it for my week. It's been a very uneventful one.
Well, I hope you're not expecting more from me, because I don't think I have anything to offer.
I haven't even been able to play. No, that is a floating head. Huh. Somebody left their head behind. I'm not sure if this game's supposed to actually do that.
Probably.
I'm assuming it's supposed to be there. Oh, yeah, okay, it's supposed to be there. It's got physics like it's supposed to be there. So yeah, this is probably the most interesting thing of my week is what I'm doing right now, which is kicking someone's head around in zero gravity.
I see.
Yeah. So I think I'll just leave it at that. I can't say I played any more PSO2 because my computer decided last night it was just going to install the Windows update that I've been putting off for the last week. So No Man's Sky 2 just nuked itself again. Because of... not No Man's Sky 2. What am I saying? PSO2. That was a save point. Alright. So, Vol, your week, sir.
Well, I'm on my second explosion of PSO2 now.
Yeah.
Like, it's not launching, and I don't have the... Normally when it's done this in the past, I can just wait it out and eventually it'll crash and I can fix it. But this time it's just refusing to, and this is all due to integration into the App Store, because that was an incredible idea.
It's totally a great idea that didn't backfire at all.
No, nothing wrong whatsoever. But yeah, but that was basically probably the bulk of what I played. One of the more consistent things I played during the earlier part of this week. I've hit max level on one one job class, being braver, and am working on Hunter, although it's slow going because I'm not speccing it to be effective. I'm speccing it to be a subclass because it's a very effective subclass for lots of other classes on account of the durability that it gives for more fragile classes. So that's what I'm currently working on with that. I don't really have a great deal to talk about though. I'm in the sort of conundrum of two major events for mobile games launching simultaneously, being the summer race event in FGO launching at the same time as the Inkstained Steel Sakura rerun event for Azure Lane, which I missed the first time round. So trying to balance two events is rough, but because they're both reruns, neither of them are critically important, so I don't have to, completely lose my mind trying to madly progress both of them. But that sort of suggests that the next two events, which will both be new events, will kind of coincide as well. So I hope that there's a beat event in Azure Lane before the next major new event, because they seem to have roughly two types of events in Azure Lane: large size ones and small size ones. And large ones have a lot of quests to do, a lot of challenges, a lot of other corollary stuff. But small ones tend to be something that you can you'll just hit up the level a few times and then you're done for the day. You can put it aside with only a few goals to progress to, some of which will typically progress naturally rather than you having to do anything in particular. But FGO doesn't have small events, generally speaking. The smallest event is All the Statesmen, which is kind of an oddball.
Yeah, it's a very strange event.
In a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. It's an oddball in a lot of ways. But
if you just take your mobile phone and just wrap it in ham, you'll be approaching what All the Statesmen is.
Well, in the case of All the Statesmen, it's Hamburg steak. Which is a major plot point for some reason. Though I'm not really sure why. So I haven't really done much else other than those as far as gaming is concerned. The anime season really hasn't kicked off per se yet. Everyone's slow off the starting blocks at the moment. What have I watched that's even? It's not really anything new that I've watched because of the delays in so many series. And honestly, it's not a very big season, and it's not a very interesting season in most ways. Even if everything wasn't launching late, which it is. So what have I watched? I haven't watched anything good, that's for sure, really. I suppose there's a second season of Fire Force, which is just picking up right where the previous one left off. It's, being that it's a Shonen Jump, it's pretty much just, it's keeping the car in the road. It's not really that. I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure it is in that magazine, but I'm not sure. It is still a shonen, and it has an awful lot in common with all the other shonens. So
that it does.
But that's just carrying on where it left off. They're doing the usual ham-fisted dropping of hints and having the odd break episode where they do absurd things, obviously, because you must.
Yeah, something silly tends to happen.
It's very much been running in the pattern of traditional shonen, and it continues to do so. Maybe not quite as slavishly as Black Clover, but pretty slavishly. It's still a fun show, and the action is quite good. Like budgets, generally speaking, have gone up across the board as far as action scenes go. So there's a lot less of the early Naruto style animation and a lot more, much more polished work.
Characters will actually be the same between two different shots, in other words.
I tried watching the one about the Demon King that reincarnates, and that's bad. Just don't. I'll probably continue. I'll probably continue watching it, but it's due to it being like that. It's the experience of mindlessly eating popcorn. Like it's you don't remember anything that happened afterwards. There's no real flavor to it in particular. It's just like, well, I don't have anything else to do, so I will fill the hole in my heart with eating. That type of show. The Monster Girl one for the season about the guy who's basically a doctor for Monster Girls is pretty much the same as every other Monster Girl show, except for the interviews with Monster Girls one, which was a bit more thoughtful. This is like all the other Monster Girl ones, which was the
He just has a legal reason to get his hands all over him.
yeah, basically it's a fan service show that isn't even trying to pretend it's anything else. Actually, no, it is superficially pretending to try it superficially pretending like it is something else, and not doing a very good job of superficially pretending because its heart isn't in it, because its heart is clearly somewhere else. For some reason, they have followed what seems to be a trend of making the first girl / main girl a Lamia. I don't know why that's so popular. I'm not sure I want to know why that's so popular, but it is really popular for some reason in these shows.
Just don't ask questions you don't want the answers to.
Yeah.
Can't run away if you don't have legs.
No.
Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it's just it's a really sparse season. There's not really much to say about it. And there's not even anything really to look forward to in that season. So, I mean, there's not really anything to look forward to in the next season either. So I don't know. That I think the whole industry is sort of on the ropes a bit at the moment.
Yeah.
It was inevitable, I suppose, with all of the disruptions so far. 2020 being 2020 all the time, not seeming to want to behave itself like a normal year.
This year needs to go down in the history books, man.
Just as the year that happened.
It needs to, but the main reason it needs to is because the scenario in which it doesn't is that next year is worse.
Yeah. We need 2020 to be a warning, not an indicator of things to come.
Yes, I think that this season is going to be another rewatch any comfort food anime I feel like, or anything that I missed that I think is important to watch. Like it's just not offering anything great. I've been wondering in a sort of dissociated way whether or not I will find myself so bereft of entertainment that I will actually try and see where Sword Art Online got up to. But then I remember the reason. Then I remember the reason I stopped watching the last season was because it was so boring.
It was bad.
It's just anytime Kirito is on screen, it just makes everything worse. Like I actually really liked the spin-off. The one about the little girl playing Gun Gale. Well, actually no, she was a huge girl and who doesn't like being a huge girl, so she plays a little girl online. Yeah, that's such a bad series. But the spin-offs are good because they are freed of the shackles of Kirito.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
let's just not talk about season 2.
No, so the thing is that season 2 is a low point, but it's a low point that is like it's a statistical curiosity that it's a low point because all of the nearby regions are also very low.
Yeah.
So it's a low point, but that's not in any way significant. That's the way I look at it.
It's just a low point among low points.
Write the Mary Sue out or put him in a coma. I heard they did that for the start of one of these seasons.
But no, he's in a coma, but he's also the main character at the same time.
Yeah.
Which
so go figure that one.
That's a simplification. However, having simplified it that way does still tell you a lot about his character.
Also tells you a whole lot about what you're working with as a show.
Yeah, but I think there's always food wars. I didn't catch up with it last season.
I've been meaning to watch it at some point, but
they ended the story.
The story was over. Yeah, it didn't need to go on. But
maybe the editor said it had to.
I guess, because now you've got... I don't know, Mirror Universe Soma or something showed up.
I don't
Oh,
know. I
boy.
haven't watched any of it yet, but I might, since it's on Crunchyroll now. I might watch it. I don't want to download it, so I'll watch it on a streaming service. I still don't want to give Crunchyroll my money, but the last alternative site that I signed up to sort of screwed the pooch.
Yeah.
They did not cope with the lockdowns well, and they just basically stopped putting up new stuff.
Oh, fun.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next slime season, but I'm still waiting for the next slime season. I don't know when it's actually going to show up.
I would totally take some.
I'm also keen to watch the. I'm still waiting for the new what are they, like, OAV episodes? Because there's like 4 of them. The first, there's like the one which is all about butt wrestling, and then there's the one about
that.
Oh, Keijo?
Yeah, that
Or whatever
happens.
it's called.
it's Keijo in the slime universe though.
Oh, no.
Oh no.
But I see no problems with this.
But then there's the one
Okay.
about him trying to make a cushion of himself to distract his assistants. But then they launch off on this mini arc where they've got 2 of the episodes so far, but they left it on a sort of an unfinished note, where basically he's entered into a feud with one of the other teachers at the school, trying to prove that his class is in fact the best.
That teacher is a smug ass.
Yes, but I sort of want to know where that story is going, but I don't know when those episodes come out. Sometimes that sort of thing is like, oh, they'll release it with like a DVD release or with a book or something like that. So I'm not quite sure how those ones are progressing, and I'm wondering if that's going to have any impact on when I'm going to get a new proper season. But yeah, so I get. Was there a new Shield Hero season announced at any point? I don't even remember now.
Not that I saw.
I think there was, but I don't remember when it was for, if it was, and I might be thinking of a different series.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I don't know. I might actually rewatch the one about the girl reborn into a world as the villainess of an Otomo game, because I really enjoyed it the first time round, and I think that with enough alcohol I could go straight into a rewatch without much difficulty, because it's really fun, light entertainment, and the main character is lovable and stupid. They did a spin-off series that's coming out at the moment of the Horse Girls anime,
Oh,
which
that happened, dude.
I'm utterly incredulous that happened, because as far as I'm aware, the mobile game, the gacha that it's a tie-in for, I don't think it ever even got finished.
Huh.
And they're sort of in this holding pattern of continuing to promote the IP while they wait for the game to actually come out. That I think. I don't remember hearing that it came out. So, yeah, I'm sort of a bit bewildered about how that's supposed to all go down. I'm trying to think if there was anything else interesting. It's all very banal at the moment, isn't it?
Extremely so.
No big games coming out. No big anime coming out.
There's always peace talks you can order.
We'll talk about
I'm
peace
not.
talks in a moment.
I have a stack of 9 novels to read next to my bed, and I don't really have time for another one yet. That's moved down the list to when I've cleared my backlog. But yeah, it's I don't have any time these days, and when I do have time, I tend to spend it even more unproductively than normal, because I don't have the energy to spend it productively, and a lot of the time PSO2 just doesn't work. Why? I don't know.
Sega,
How
why are you so
can this
scared?
keep going like this? Do they just figure, oh well, we've got a critical mass of people who can successfully log in each day, so we don't care? Is that what's going on here?
I think
it's
so.
we got our burst of initial whale purchases. We made the dev money back. They can stop whining about it now.
Sad, but very likely.
And we were contributors to that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the However, I don't think that it's actually got a very good future ahead of it necessarily. I feel like they've pumped out too much content in too short amount of time because they were hell bent on matching 8 years of Japanese progress with 8 months of US progress.
Mm.
And that's just, I think that the Cannonball run to be updated is not.
Well, the launch version we got was some halfway Frankenstein thing that they had going.
Yeah, well, it's because they're intending to have everything completed by the end of the year.
Yeah, and it's just not going to work. It's just too much.
Yeah, you don't get to do any quest for any great length of time. You can't follow the story. No event actually seems particularly momentous because they aren't coming in sync with anything. Like, for instance, the fight against Luther, for instance. That's sort of like the massive, like a massive mid to late point in the storyline as told by the anime, and the anime is an adaptation of episodes 1, 2, and 3, which I can recommend if you're interested in the story of PSO2 because it communicates it better than the game does.
Yeah, if you're not, don't.
But part of the reason it communicates it so much better than the game is that my impression is based on the US version, where nothing happens in synchrony with the progress. So what I find is that the curve is so fast moving and the rotation of quests is so rapid in PSO2 that I never do the story quests because there's no time. There's no time. But basically, story quests are supposed to be something that you progress on a reasonably consistent basis, and the release of something like the Luther fight will coincide with, most people should be up to Luther in the story by now and have fought the story version Luther. I think that there's a story version Luther anyway. So we've got this situation where everything is out of sync, and now we're fighting whatchamacallit, the ultimate version of the darkness, which is sort of like the grand finale of the primary storyline in urgent quests, but nobody has any idea what's going on.
No,
it's just like you're fighting a giant mechanical flower in space.
Yeah. Like, the fight is big, it is grand, it takes ages. Everyone dies and the mechanics make no sense. But
it's not supposed to take quite as long as it actually does. It's just that everybody's undergeared because it came out so quickly.
And the gears curve is non-existent.
Yes, like I've talked about with you guys in the past that I did super hard. I did super hard Luther, and I spent almost the entire fight on the floor.
Yep.
Because there's an enormous difficulty gap. And the thing is, the reason there's an enormous difficulty gap is that super hard Luther is something that, under natural circumstances, you would probably be way more geared for doing it than you actually are in North America, because the only threshold to access it is to be level 60 or 70 or whatever it is. I don't even remember. 65 maybe.
60, 65.
But it's a humongous gap in difficulty above very hard. Like, it's not even comparable. Everything will, as a braver, everything one-shots you. Everything. You don't take damage, you just die. That's the reality of your existence in Super Hard Luther. And the reason for that is that you're supposed to be geared. You're supposed to be geared and well practiced and know how to do the fight because you've done it before as a solo player and experimented with it until you got through it in the story mode. So what we are doing in North America server is really backwards. Everything is ass backwards from start to finish.
Yeah.
And, we've also got a situation where there's no way to progress gear because your gear is always obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody is underpowered because nobody is cultivating affixes. And the reason nobody is cultivating affixes is because next month that gear will be obsolete and all your work will be gone and all your meseta will be gone. So everybody has crap gear because they know that next month's gear will be better, but that gear also won't get upgraded because the month after that gear will be better. So the gear curve is really not working. I don't understand why but even saying that, I do understand why, because there's always that chorus, and it's the same in FGO. There was a really strong contingent of people howling that we needed to catch up to JP. We needed to crunch those 2 years worth of content down into the shortest amount of time possible and make parity with Japanese server.
Yeah, it didn't work for
Yeah.
FGO either.
Even
Well,
as much as I love Type Moon, I would have quit the game trying to keep, because I would have tried to keep up with it. You know what I'm like about that stuff.
Yeah.
You can already tell by the fact that I'm trying to play two gacha games at the same time. I would have tried to keep up with FGO and it would have killed me. I don't
Now
burn
it's
out as
real.
fast on things as Ari does when it comes to mobile games, but it would have burned me out if I tried to be playing something that was running at that ridiculous pace.
Can you imagine being like they're burning through everything so fast, and because these things need time because of the way they're structured in FGO, you'd have to do like Journey to the West and some grindy Gouda Gouda event at the same time.
Oh, it's been bad enough as it is. The natural pace is rough enough when you have a really grindy event show up.
Yeah. But
Let alone if you
it
were-
was just back to back to back to back, event.
But there are also things that work really well just played out naturally. Like, have you done the prologue for the Lost Belts yet, Ari?
Yeah, I'm up to Golem Boy showed up, and we beat up some rebels, and we're going in their camp now.
My point that I was going to make is that prologue played out in real time over Christmas.
Yeah, I was mashing the skip button as it was releasing because it had rewards associated with finishing it. And it added it to the list of we'll go back and watch later, which we'll get to later.
But yeah, I played through that in natural real time, and that added a lot of impact to it that wouldn't have been there if they were just trying to, got a barge through to parity and they just jammed that in there somewhere. There's a lot of stuff only works at the pace that it was designed for. And that is true of virtually everything in PSO2. Like, they designed it to work in a certain way, and it doesn't. And so you end up with people who think that they've got in-game gear and they don't, or they have in-game gear and it's not properly prepped. Like, I have I haven't gotten any Sigma bows to drop. I would say that Sigma would be considered that's sort of like Dungeon Set 0, the Tier 0 Dungeon Set 1. Like, it's something that everybody gets and is a necessary, this is you stepping onto the gear curve for the latter stages of the game. However, instead of having a period where people got Sigma and they would dump stuff into their Sigma because enough of it was dropping, that that becomes your fodder for your first big 13 star or whatever. That didn't really happen. Nobody uses Sigma weapons unless they just happen to get one early, because you're supposed to promote yourself up to Nox weapons as fast as possible. And Nox weapons, from there you're supposed to proceed on through a series of different things. But actually these all exist in the same time. So basically you use whatever you can afford from the market and equip, even if that stuff is like way above the content you can actually do or that you have access to or whatever. Like, I decided that I just had no real choice but to buy the Revulsio bow from the challenge miles outright, because I can't actually do the content that I have access to now. Like, I go into Ultimate Quest and I just die because everything has so many hit points that I can't kill it.
Yeah.
And that's because I naturally gain access to that content when I hit level 70. However, my gear has not advanced at that rate.
And I think the game has two other problems that are worth touching on that are in the same vein as this. The first one is as the game is releasing new content, that content is more complex than the content in the game before it. We're seeing mechanics in the fights now, and players have to practice them. Now, if you play Devil May Cry all the time, you've probably seen everything these bosses can do, and then some. If you're the majority of the player base who we wind up in groups with to do these big urgent quest boss fights or whatever, you ain't ready for this.
Yeah, I hope you brought a lot of moon atomizers.
Yeah, because those things are spammed nonstop in every urgent quest I do now that I can do the hardest difficulty. and the player base just ain't up to the skill level yet. In general, people don't got time to practice Vigil like this if they ain't used to it.
But it's not
And-
even a matter of being used to it, though. Like, you just have to do everything as fast as possible because it's the only way you can keep running on the log. Like, let's say that you have mad skills at games. You still don't have time to practice because that quest is going to be gone in a couple weeks.
Yep.
You won't have a chance to do it again. All the gear that drops, that'll be out of your reach now because they will have rotated to something else.
Yep. So it's just this ridiculous treadmill with all this. And because we're getting so much dang new junk all the time, we have a problem that really has two parts to it. We have the info dump problem. And this means nobody on NA, unless they dig through seriously giant text files or PDFs, or Google Docs or whatever, has any clue what the heck they're doing.
Cam certainly doesn't tell you.
CRE's spec for jet boots.
Yeah, like they
What have you done to your mag?
yeah. Well, that's the point, right? There's no way to know how important this stuff is before you start, and then all of a sudden you just have. If you actually make it to the end game, you realize you still don't have a clue what you were doing, and the little bit you have figured out was so wrong. You have to basically start over.
Yep.
It's not a good way to get information to the player that they've got going on here. And they're just dumping more and more as new mechanics and new stuff comes out. And it never stops.
As an example, for instance, Bouncer, with its significantly, noticeably higher complexity than most similar classes due to its emphasis on cancels, that didn't exist until episode 3 was released.
Yeah. And
Summoner didn't exist until episode 4, which is, after the entire main arc of the primary story is over. That's basically, you can think of Summoner as a class that came out in Heavenswood as far as FF terms go.
Yep.
Like, and yet you've got access to it at the start, and let's not get started on the fine detail of managing the candy box.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that is some next level.
I can't do the candy box yet because at first I've got to max out the my stats of my pet. Otherwise, I'm just recycling the pet and deleting the candy, which means I have to go and grind it again. But the game doesn't tell you that.
You can't pry candy out of the box.
I can if I have money.
Oh, which type of money are we talking? In-game money or real money?
Both.
I see.
Or you can do it with either.
man,
But,
yeah. That's a mess. There's just a whole lot of stuff that's a mess, and the game isn't going to stabilize to let people just figure it out.
Yeah,
But
I think
the
actually,
thing- I think
Summoner is a weapon tier below everyone else. Like, I think everyone else can get 12-star weapons at the current level. Summoner, I think, caps out at 10.
I've got a 13-star weapon. So.
Oh, there you go, 13 then. No, that's
But,
right. I got an 11-star pet too. So yeah, that's
I don't know whether or not that matters because pets are so far off the beaten path as far as mechanics go that maybe, for all I know, that doesn't actually mean anything.
yeah, it probably doesn't.
Like, can you tell? How would you tell? How can you
Exactly.
tell? And I feel like this isn't a case of like taking a blowtorch to a candle and just melting it all the way down. I feel like they're burning at both ends as well, because we're at this ridiculous pace, right? Where every week there's another patch and another feature comes out, and we get increasingly confused as time goes on. When they hit parity, it's going to seem like the end of MOP.
Ugh.
Yeah.
There'll be nothing happening for ages by comparison.
Yeah.
So
They-
you're going to lose people to confusion as you race to parity, and then you're going to lose people to stagnation after the fact. Even though, the Japanese server's totally used to that rate of progression, but we're used to having to constantly scramble, and suddenly nothing's happening anymore. You log on, everything is the same as it was last week and the week before and the week before and the week before.
Mm.
We're being acclimated to something which, while unhealthy, it sets expectations that are also incorrect as far as the healthy state goes.
Yeah. And I really wish they'd have just released the game on its initial, like maybe a few patches in if there was some must-fix stuff early on. And maybe ease in a few mechanics at the start that came much later if they're quality of life stuff. But they needed to release the game like that and then not touch it for like 2.5 months.
Yeah, let everyone
That's
figure
what
it
we
out.
need to
You need a natural equilibrium to sort of establish itself. Like the market needs to sort itself out. That would be a good benchmark to use, I think, would be the market settling down. So it's not so spiky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you want a natural gear curve to establish itself. You look at the number of weapons in each tier that are dropping and the portions of the population that have access to them, the rates of death in certain boss fights and that type of thing, clearing speeds. Like you could collect the data on it if you were so inclined and wait for the game to stabilize so that you don't have, the cannonball run people at the top and the people so those people are in a separate category from the normal people, as opposed to everybody has to rush at the same speed or they quit playing. Like there's so much about their release that they did wrong, like both on a technical level and on a practical implementation level for the content itself. Like I don't get it. Like, why did they choose this? What is the advantage? Is the advantage for them really so great of achieving early parity that it's worth the amount of chaos that they're going to cause and the amount of attrition that they'll suffer?
Yeah, it's too much all at once with nobody having a good idea of even what the base game is. Because there wasn't one for us. We jumped in a billion patches ahead.
Yeah, but while we've got some later content, there's other bits that are just missing as well.
Like, just think about what we were like as new players going into PSO2, and even still now to a degree. You log into the game for the first time. Okay, did the little tutorial, got my character, made it pretty. I'm wandering around. Oh, look, there's a bunch of quests everywhere. Okay, let's do this batch. Oh, goodness, how many quests are these? What should I prioritize? What do I do? What does any of this mean? Oh, no, there's how many systems I gotta learn? What do I need to keep checking on? What's important? What's not? That's the kind of experience we're having right now. And every new player is going to have it going in. And most people are going to say, screw this.
Yeah. What's worse is, every week it's something new is added to the pile.
Yeah, and that list of dudes with quests just gets bigger and bigger. And you can never chew through all of them. I have a premium thing paid for to keep... Part of it is because it gives you 40 orders you can track. 40 quests that need doing.
It's a lot of quests.
That doesn't, and you still have to leave room for dailies. And that's just what's in my log. There are hundreds more all around me, and I have no way of telling which of these are important or which ones I should pay attention to or what.
Yeah, I mean, all of the long-term players will trot out and say, oh, you're just a scrub. You need to be able to handle it. But
you're winning me over to this game. This is not a game I have any passion for. If you want me to get invested and try and play seriously and get in groups, you got to win me. You got to pull me in first, and it's doing a real good job of pushing me away lately.
I think that the part of this is probably a knee-jerk reaction to how slow the original launch was. I heard something about the Japanese launch being kind of rough, like it was a bit slow. It's the opposite of what we have now. But the problem is that you could probably get away with a very fast launch on NA and an accelerated pace to parity, but the disorganized nature of it, like, it is causing things to be wrong and the player base to be bad. Like, on average, if you're talking the upper tier of max level players, not like this, say the top 2/3 of max level players, that's a huge slice of them. I'm not talking about the top 1%. I'm talking about the top 2/3. Most of them are at a power level which, from what I've heard, is roughly equivalent to episode 6 in Japan. And they're using it to face roll episode 3 content and getting bored out of their skulls because it's trivial. And unfortunately, they all draw the wrong conclusion from this. And they say, oh, well, I mean, it makes sense to have the content progress this fast. In fact, maybe it should progress faster because we're face rolling the content because we're all just all so good. No. You're using gear from MOP to play Burning Crusade.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
like
that's not
logic.
Yeah, this is not rational. You're not seeing the way it was supposed to function here, but you're drawing conclusions anyway. And that's not, I don't know. I think that's the impression I get anyway. Obviously, I didn't play the Japanese one, so I don't know how it all pans out in the end. But I enjoy dorking about in that game. If it would ever load.
Yeah, still haven't got that error message pop up.
Yeah, maybe it's a different era this time to the last one that I had, which did the same thing. But it's. I don't know why they had to drop the ball this hard. It doesn't seem necessary. There's plenty of models to follow which don't involve doing this.
Yeah, this is you could have kept us going at fast speed and given us a baseline to start with, but instead you stuck us on ludicrous speed and just dumped the entire game in our laps to learn all at once.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that player psychology is complicated, and there's a lot of wrong ways to do things. But I think that they just picked one of the wrong ways. Like I can sort of see the motivation behind accelerating it because people don't want to feel like they're being left behind, and they may just decide that they're not interested if the progress is too slow. People probably don't like the sensation of, oh, well, I need to grind my Nox weapon to maximum in order to be strong enough to get the next weapon up, even though I know the entire track of progression from here on out, and so I'm just going to, reserve judgment until it becomes easy to get. And like you would end up with, people saving their gameplay for a rainy day or something. I don't know. There's lots of reasons which would contribute to thinking, oh, we need to accelerate the pace, but I think the consequences have not been thought about carefully enough.
Yeah,
because
I think that this is an extraordinarily poor implementation of a workable concept of an accelerated progression.
Yeah, I just as somebody that is not too into the game but can play it with friends and isn't opposed to logging on if they want to do something and ask me to. Every time they ask me, it's getting more and more. It's gone from okay, yeah, sure, I'll hop on to okay, sure, I'll hop on.
It's also worth noting that a lot of people have been locked down in their houses during the launch, because remember the Xbox launch was a lot earlier.
Yep.
And a lot of the community has had nothing to do but log hundreds of hours in PSO2 because the government says they can't go out of their house. That's going to cause content burnout. It's going to also make it look like that they need to progress faster than they would under normal circumstances. Eventually, people aren't going to be shut up in their house anymore.
No, it's already lifting in most of Australia.
It's lifting in most of the world. There are only a few diehard places that are scared to open up because they don't want the opprobrium from the press. And that's really what's behind it all. It's whether or not they want to be popular with the press. It doesn't seem to have lockdowns. They have not statistically been shown to have any effect on anything so far. I know the people that implemented the lockdowns can't necessarily have known that that's the way it would pan out, given the dubious advice they were receiving from so-called experts. But there's no evidence that lockdowns had any meaningful effect in the long run.
There is, however, quite a ton of evidence that they made things for everything that wasn't Wu-Flu infinitely worse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people don't believe in things like economic consequence. If they were, then nobody would vote. If they did, then nobody would vote for left-wing parties. So,
real? Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to.
Oh dear.
We'll get to impacts of the lockdown when we get to.
I'm just trying to scare Fern a little bit. But yeah, so I went on that tangent in lieu of the fact that my week didn't contain very much, and I hope for that to change, but I don't have high hopes because PSO2 won't start, and I'm going to be dying in gacha hell. On the upside, I did get IJ and Nagato, Battleship Nagato, from the gacha, which is the single most important thing that you can pull from the gacha in this event. It's Merlin. It's that sort of level of meta impact, because Nagato enables a significant amount of additional power for IJN fleets, because it gives a huge buff to a whole bunch of stuff. So when you're building IJN centric fleets, like for instance, she gives like a 20% buff to aircraft carriers, and IJN fleets use a lot of paired aircraft carriers. So represents a pretty significant power boost. So that was a good pull from the gacha, and what's more, I pulled the most important thing from the gacha within like 10 pulls, which explains where all of my luck from FGO went.
Yeah.
Oh well, I can't win everything.
Yeah.
At least you win something.
Yeah, I'm way less fussed about which ships I use in Azure Lane than I am about which servants I get in FGO, which is probably why it goes out this way.
Yeah, I'm about to say it's because of your emotional investment that your luck is set that way.
Azure Lane, in Azure Lane, I'm just going to make whatever fleets that I think are cool, regardless of what I pull from the gacha. It's pretty rare that I badly want something from the gacha, because all of the most powerful stuff comes from PR seasons anyway, which you can grind out ultimately. And I pretty much, like, for all the hardest stuff, I still use the fleet that I built at first, which is the Tiabu fleet, the whole the all Royal Navy fleet. Yeah, so I don't care enough about that for the gacha to betray me. Unfortunately, I do care about Type Moon stuff, so the gacha relentlessly betrays me. But eventually, as far as FGO is concerned, I'm going to end up doing nothing but using Kirihime for everything anyway. So maybe my gacha luck will improve once I resort to that.
I doubt it. You're expecting it to improve, so it won't.
Yeah,
well, it'll become irrelevant whether or not it does. That's the thing. Like, there aren't, as things have proceeded, there have been less and less servants come out that I'm particularly interested in over the course of time.
yeah.
So I'll care less and less about it. Like, a lot of the newer servants, I just know, I guess she's cute, but that's about the only thing you can say about her, type of thing. That, like, most of the stuff that I like is already out.
Let's see. I got my list like in a text file in one of these folders. There it is. Of
I don't-
stuff to
I don't
watch
keep
out
a-
for.
I don't keep a list because I remember it in my brain. But
I keep it in a text file talking to myself.
like
Well, arguing with yourself over waifus?
Oh, I posted it in the live show chat what I currently have written down.
That's worrying.
like,
Make
I
sure
would
there's
like
nothing bad in there. No, it's all safe for work. Okay, good.
I'd like Benny Enma at New Year, but I'm like not interested in any of the India Lost Belt servants or anything like that. They're over the course of years. There's the odd summer servant that might be nice, but I don't really need any of them. Like, I've got a relatively stable lineup now, although I'm lacking sort of raw power for AoE casters, and I'm lacking raw power for well, I'm not lacking raw power necessarily in the Saber category, but it would be nice to have some 5-star. Because sometimes you need that little bit of extra stats to make something easy rather than having to wrestle with a complicated strategy at length. But yeah, there's not that many servants that are coming out in the sort of over the, like, 1 year from now that I'm terribly focused on needing to get a hold of. Like, there's the odd one here and there, but it's becoming less and less important. Like, ultimately, it would be more useful to pull a waiver than 99% of other stuff, generally speaking. So yeah, it's now that I've got Skadi, that means that I'll eventually, when I finish farming, will have built up a 50% battery, which opens up a lot of strategies for us kaleidoscope-less peasants. But yeah, it's just not like there's a huge amount of stuff. Like, I'd like Rhinos, and I'd like Benyenma, and I'd like a handful of them, but most of them are like Even the meta ones are like from now on, because ultimately everything boils down to Tamamo, Merlin, Skadi, Waver. If you've got, a good helping of those, you can make your way through and solve all the rest of your problems with Grails. So,
Nobody's going to solve their problems with Grails. They're going to stick it in their waifu.
well, I consider that to be a solution. Like, Kirihime is an incredibly inferior version of of Raikou, for instance, along every conceivable axis, but at level 100 it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But the only meta breaker that I can think of, well, no, there are two meta breakers I can think of that are coming out over the course of like the next 2 years, and those are Shi Huangdi, who is like the better Zhon, like a Zhon who is so effective that he can solo everything if he really wants to.
Wow.
And the other one is probably Arjuna Alta, who has just got the highest DPS output conceivable, as I understand it.
He just makes stuff explode with an AoE NP, and he's a Zerker.
You can stack a few buffs on him and it's over. Like that's it. He can blow up anything. Of course, he shatters like a pane of glass if he actually has to receive a turn of damage, but the idea is to make that not a thing.
He just blows everyone up before they can act.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
that's the principle. But I mean, he has guts as well, so
Oh, okay. So, fun.
yeah, he has self heal. That's why instead of just being the ultimate nuke, he's considered to be a meta breaker. Is because he is a berserker that has the ability to preserve his existence for more than a turn. Because he's got HP regen and guts. So yeah, that's what makes him a meta breaker. Is he's a berserker that doesn't have as much of the conventional berserker weaknesses. But other than those two, in the next 2 years, I can't think of anyone who actually has a huge impact on, oh, well, these are the dominant strategies. And I know there's no PvP, so people might think it's strange to talk about a meta, but when you're talking about the meta in FGO, what you're really, Soto voice talking about is what are the developers going to develop around? What strategies are they going to try and kill? Because we're going to see over the course of the next few Lost Belts, a lot of Merlin hoses will start to appear because of the dominance of that strategy. And when eventually they'll realize that Merlin's not actually the problem and Skadi is, and then they'll start developing around Skadi systems to try and make it like maybe we should have bosses in farming levels so that you can't Skadi everything out of existence, and people who like have a single target servant as their waifu can actually use their waifu once in a while.
La-di-da-di-da-di. La-di-da-di, we love the Scotty.
I don't know whether I forgot that achievement.
In what game?
Anyway. Wow.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot where it was from. I think it's from a song, actually.
It's from Utgard Pinnacle, that's where it's from. But, yeah, so I'm hoping is that I'm not necessarily just hoping for better luck from the Gutch, although, hope springs eternal, right? I'm hoping to care less. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, that's the reason. It's the same goal, really. Because the less you care about it, the better your luck will be.
I'm sort of reaching that point as it is. Like I'm really into the Lost Belt stories and the world building that they're doing and the way it integrates with a bunch of other stuff that they've dropped, hints that they've dropped in other related properties and in earlier storylines. But as far as the servants in particular go, I'm just not that concerned anymore. I've got most of my favorites that I want. There are a few that I'm missing of ones that I want. Like I didn't get Anastasia, who I really wanted. But most things I've been fortunate enough to get a good helping of the things that I want, and so it would be churlish of me to seriously complain. Although once you flush 600 quartz down the loo, it's sort of hard not to complain. But I know that there are people who have live streamed worse luck than me.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
And then there was that time that guy spent like $3,000 trying to get Ilya. Like, I don't plan on doing that anytime soon.
That's a lot of quartz.
There's a lot of quartz, but there's a lot more money than it is quartz, in my opinion. I have uses for that sort of dosh.
Yeah, I gotta buy a house.
Yeah, I need you to buy a house too. I don't like this police state.
As if you say you're moving to the U.S. and you need me to go get a house right now, I'll start looking. If you say that, But
It's a possibility for the future. Once I've got all my affairs in order here, then I don't necessarily want to stay here with the way things are going. Especially considering it looks like the Labour government is going to crush the opposition this election. Although they've had another shake-up in the leadership of National. I mean, Vern knows what it's like with parliamentary politics, right? The leaders change more often than most people change their underwear, especially for the party that is not the incumbent, because they're always looking for someone to blame for the fact that they're not the incumbent. But we've recently had like the fourth leader for the National Party in 3 years or something.
Yeah.
But
I see.
But the woman who's now in charge is like, she's politically aggressive in a way that milquetoast national leaders typically haven't been. Like, and I think that the part of the reason that people are thinking that maybe National isn't going to completely wash out of the election, they might actually be able to at least hold enough of the votes to provide reasonable opposition, is the fact that she, for whatever her other faults as a politician, she hates Labour qua Labour. Like, the things that she just thinks that the things that Labour do are patently absurd and should be opposed on that basis. Which I can appreciate that. That's the sort of thing I can appreciate. I still don't really intend to vote for them because, well, they're National. But we'll see. We'll see what they bring to the table come election season, which is like 50 days away or something for us.
Yeah. Yeah, at least our election season is what, 3 months, if that.
Ours is like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it happens so quick, and then everyone goes back to not caring.
Actually, the length of our election season really depends on the media. Like, who do the media want elected? Since Jacinda is currently incumbent and the media worships at her footstool, they will probably abbreviate the election campaign to about 3 days, so that nobody gets any screen time other than her, because she's already the prime minister, so she's on telly all the time.
Yeah.
But they don't really want any. They don't really want any screen time for the opposition unless the opposition have done something which doesn't speak well of them, which is regularly. Anyway, after that tangent, I'm going to call an end to my ramblings.
All right, we need to go to a break.
We do, and I'm actually completely lost as to where I'm supposed to be going in here now to find this last room.
All right, we will be right back. You know, Fern, you call it stuff horrible that I say during the breaks, but it's really not that bad.
Yeah,
It-
no.
It's a physical and accurate description of what happened. It paints the perfect clear image in your head. I
Yeah,
just
it
don't
does.
couch my I just do not couch my language because other people don't get to tell me words I've used my whole life are not okay anymore. Sorry, you don't get to decide that.
I think people are going to draw even worse conclusions.
I think you've just made everything a lot worse. Yeah.
That was the point, yes.
Excellent. So now that everything's ruined forever, we're back.
We are. PSO2 is still broken and appears to have broken Mine Involves computers.
Excellent.
Yeah. I'm not sure what's going on there. I guess I'll wait for somebody else to figure it out.
I'm about to give up on trying to
I want to play their
game.
game, man, but they just don't want me in there.
Yeah.
Sega, stop being bad.
I'll just
Let
wait
us
for the Steam
give you
release.
money. Let us enjoy your
Oh, I bet
product.
I bet when they do a Steam release, it's going to be incompatible with whatever account you've got on the Microsoft Store.
I can all
because-
but guarantee it.
I wonder if
they-
you can contact
just the-
customer support and get them to migrate it.
Nah, they're a bunch of freaking clowns.
Yeah, I
I don't-
can't
I
expect
don't-
my character to turn up at the other end with two heads or something.
Yeah, I've got zero faith in their capacity to develop in a competent fashion.
Yeah.
I really wanted to play it, man.
The game is fun.
But I mean, yeah, it is fun, but I can just go back to Final Fantasy because, if these guys. I gave them money. It wasn't enough though, apparently. I went to great lengths to give them money, in fact.
Yeah. Went through me.
yes,
So did Fern.
yes.
Although I more just skipped the he goes through me part and just
Yeah.
did the other half of the transaction for him.
Here, have some money.
Like, please, Fern, you're sitting there doing nothing whenever we play for like long stretches of time, clearing out your inventory. Just buy some, man.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
yeah. Saval, the rest of your week.
No, I'll call an end to it there.
All right. So this week, I don't know how I had all this time to do as much as I did, but I did. I guess I just used my time efficiently and didn't notice because I had a lot of free time this week. Well, I didn't think I did, but I seem to have accomplished a lot. So the big thing this week. Well, we'll keep going with the FGO talk about and focus on that first, since that's coming off Falls Week. We'll talk about what I do. So, get my iPad so I can make sure I remember everything I do. And
You done did a dude.
I did a dude. So, I decided, because of something I'll talk about afterwards, since I was already playing FGO after having taken another hiatus, which is, I think, a much healthier way to play than trying to play a gacha game normally.
I'm not trying to play a gacha game normally.
You're playing two, you crazy person.
Yeah, is to just embrace the fact that that it becomes a chore and just put the iPad down and don't even get the login bonuses and just
By the
walk
way,
away.
Just a random fact to make you feel a little bit better, Vol. I discovered the other day that I've got a friend who's actually balancing 5.
Why?
I have no idea.
That person is insane.
That person
I have
is
4
genuinely
installed,
crazy.
but I never even start up 2 of them.
Yeah. I do not balance playing these games. I will, if I am enjoying one and into one, I like to play stuff in stretches and bursts and get all the way through it if it's a finishable thing. I don't like these constantly play models of stuff. And so how I wind up playing games like FGO is I will play for quite a while, and then as soon as it starts to become a chore instead of something I enjoy, I will try my best to start moving towards stopping. And once I've stopped and got myself distracted with something else, I go out of my way not to even touch the dang iPad that it's installed on.
Well, I'm here to tell you that I don't stop enjoying it because I actually have to try to complete quests. Because I don't just have every servant in the game at my fingertips.
Well, it isn't so much the content itself. It's just there's always something that needs grinding or doing. And I just don't like that feeling. and getting yourself stuck in the headspace of, I might miss something.
That's because you're a completionist. I'm not. Like, I play as much of a given event as I think is necessary, and then I stop.
Yeah.
Like, I don't clear the shop or anything, But you see a bar, it has to be filled all the way to the top.
Yeah, and that's very dangerous with these type of games. So I've deliberately made it so I play them this way, and it's a much better experience for it. So I had stopped not too many events after Agartha came out. So that's the second arc in the Arc 1.5 series in the Epic of Remnant. So I picked it back up, and I finished up Arc 1.5, which you don't have to do to play the Lost Belts, but the point of playing FGO is for the story and getting JPEGs, and you can get JPEGs without doing the story. So I went through and I played through what was in the Epic of Remnant. In general, a quick retrospective, Shinjuku was decent. Agartha was only funny because of Octail and Hordak, but it was incredibly funny because of Octail and Hordak. So
I think you found it funnier than I did. Like I thought it was amusing, but I don't find the boundless entertainment in Fergus plunging his sword deeply into the land.
He does. And so I enjoyed it a little bit more than I think I should have. But it was, in general, if I was able to take the lenses off, I think I would say it was okay, but not super good. Shimosa was awful.
It's not good.
No.
It's not good. It was a very self-indulgent story written by somebody who was deliberately trying to pay homage to some novel series that only people in Japan have ever read. It was specifically a callback. It was specifically a reference to something that we have no referent. So we can't enjoy it. We fundamentally are incapable of seeing what it has that's of note.
Yeah, and while I am aware of Japanese history that happened post Sengoku up to World War II, the names are names I've heard somewhere a couple times or seen as names of things in RPGs. And I might have read the story or their history once or twice, but it's been ages and not something that I'm intimately familiar with. So what wound up happening was the whole time I was going through Samosha, I just kept the dang TV tropes page for characters up for this thing, and and general wiki pages up for FGO and the real world to figure out who the heck these people were.
That's no good.
Because they keep name dropping people in that chapter that are supposed to be important and stuff. I'm like, that's great. Who the heck are you?
I didn't hate Shimosa as much as you did, for the simple reason that it has Kiyohime in it.
Well,
that's the only reason.
The waifu is present. 10 out of 10.
So yeah, in general, Shimosa is totally skippable. IMO. You don't even need to do it through Salem.
It's totally skippable in English, but the entire thing is about foreshadowing the trees from
the Lost Belts. Yeah,
like that's the crux of that. Is that Shimosa is sort of a proto Lost Belt, but it's all gone from the translation because the translator didn't understand it and just omitted it instead.
Yeah. So a lot of reference to trees and stuff is not there. There's a whole lot of Christian Jesuit red herrings that look like they might go somewhere and go nowhere, other than foreshadow the final boss, and that's it. And he's out of the story until halfway through the last chapter.
It's all presented in a very corny fashion as well.
Yeah. And it's just, in general, not very good. The humor's not very good. Your guest characters aren't endearing. They're not, Saidori and they're not cool. They're not Drake. Your companion character is Musashi, and the only joke they ever have is, oh, this Musashi has boobies.
It's the same joke they always use then.
Yeah, that's been a very... Since Musashi's a recurring character throughout the course of the story, not just in Shimosa, but in other Lost Belts as well, she's become a very divisive figure because the Japanese fandom love her. But since Musashi's not an important figure in the West at all, nobody gives a toss, and they just don't understand why there's this constant spotlight stealer will show up for a little bit and then disappear.
Yeah, she gives this exact same vibe you get from Nero. It's almost literal.
Well, that's
Literally
because
the same vibe.
Musashi is their second attempt to do Nero. She's less offensive about it than Nero, but you can tell that the objective is still the same.
Yeah. They made a character, they fell in love with it, and they want everybody else to know how great their character is. So
The thing
yeah,
is, in Japan, they didn't like Nero because Nero was not part of their mythos, their national
yeah.
mythos. But Musashi, on the other hand, fits like a glove. So, yeah.
But yeah, so Shimosa not very good. Salem I actually thought had the best story of the Epic Remnant chapters.
Yeah, I agree. I think like I like Shinjuku a lot. Like I liked it more than most people do, but I think on balance Salem was better. Salem I felt had a weak ending, but on average was better.
Yeah. I'm not sure what they could have done with the story they were telling to make the ending have a bit more punch, but
Yeah, I
it
think that
did
they
feel a
let it
little
get
weak.
away with them. Like I feel like the ending is the ending that you put on when you realize that you need about 6 more chapters to finish the story and you've only got one.
Yeah, and Salem is a shorter chapter than most. I think they had to get it out a little faster for reasons at the time, but it is a relatively short chapter with only 10 nodes that have a whole. The first half up to like node 6 have like 6 parts to them, but I like the framing device in Salem. I liked the way they managed to integrate the combat. It's not, there are more skeletons coming. Quick, Mash. We must defeat them before the conversation can continue.
Do the thing, Mash.
Mash, do the thing. Okay, we did the thing. Now let's continue the conversation we were just having.
Where were we?
Honestly, I think that contributed very much to my enjoyment of Salem. I mean, you might remember that I gushed about it a lot when I was playing it on the show, but they unfortunately they go right back to fighting random beasts in the fields when you get back to the Lost Belts.
Yeah,
So it's not something that's going to last, unfortunately.
but yeah, the framing device is really good. Instead, you're putting on a play, or you're pretending to be a group of traveling theater people. So you put on plays for the town, and you do your combat in the perspective of the people beating up the protagonists of the play. For all the plays, I think one of them you're on their side, but it's a good way to inject fights into a entirely narrative story.
I also sort of I liked how Mash was able to participate because she's a very important member of the cast, and it was sort of when you're playing it in real time, like as each chapter comes out, like I did, you start to really notice her absence. Like it's not like she contributes anything especially crucial most of the time during the initial chapter, so much as she does provide a lot of the player's voice,
and she's a good sort of anchor point for the real player, not the player avatar.
The location that you occupy as the spectator is Mash most of the time, and she's not there because she can't fight for the first few chapters. But bringing her back into the story, I think, was really, really well done. Like, and they make you sympathize with her that way, regardless, because of the way her dialogue is written. How she's clearly so desperate to be of some use, even though she can't fight. I liked the way that they put that together. I liked the consistent troupe of characters that you're working with. You know, it's sort of a limited resources situation. This is one of the earliest times that they send you with servants with whom you are established to have already been familiar to accomplish something, and that a lot of them are individuals who don't normally get the spotlight.
Yeah, and I think the MVP of the whole chapter is Sanson.
Yeah, I never thought that I would have any thoughts about Sanson. Like, it's not even that I disliked him, because I didn't think about Sanson. Who thinks about Sanson?
He's an interesting figure if you've done a lot of reading on the French Revolution, but other than that, I did not particularly care for his fate interpretation. And he just turned out this little executioner from France has a pretty deep and compelling character to him in the Fate universe. Well, he's not little. He kicked a guy in the face because they were being disrespectful to the executed.
But yeah, I liked the way Salem was put together. Like, I think it's been the most successful deviation from the standard formula that they've done, with the possible exception of Seraph.
So yeah, and that was the other one I did. So Seraph was a wonky one to go back and read instead of play, because I had thoroughly played it to complete the event when it happened. And I did that on purpose because everybody said you need to play Seraph because it basically is a singularity.
It's the real singularity that Shimosa isn't.
Yeah, so it is a crossover event. And in general, I liked the Seraph story. I didn't like it as much as Salem. Part of that might be due to the fact I was reading it and not playing it, so some parts didn't have as much oomph. But near the finale, even not doing the big boss fight, I still felt like everything still had a lot of punch to the story. So I'm not sure that's it. But in general, it's fairly strong for this, especially compared to most of the other Epic Remnant chapters. It's probably second best.
It's also got the most successful bait and switch in the entire storyline.
Yeah.
And I was actually kind of impressed with that, because it's not one that I expected. It's one of the few times that I didn't predict exactly how the story would go from like the first chapter.
Yeah.
The idea that the whole hostage situation is completely reversed, like that really tickled me. I thought that was really clever.
Yeah. My favorite part was Gawain. And I never thought I would say that about Gawain because he's normally a wet blanket.
It's because your experience with Gawain is mostly centered on the very tiny sliver of you seeing his, counterpart in Camelot, and the unbelievably flaccid version of him that you see in a lot of the corollary media for Extra. But his actual character, as you see him play out in those little moments where there's nothing momentous happening, he's a complete clown who doesn't realize it. Like he's a golden boy who doesn't really realize that part of being the golden boy also means that you're a complete dork.
I got a picture that emphasizes a choice you can make with Gawain that I had to take as soon as it popped up. And I posted it in the live show chat.
Like the Knights of Camelot are all pretty much the same. Like whether it's Tristan or Gawain or Lancelot, their logic centers primarily around one thing, and that's women. Preferably other people's wives for preference.
Camelot is a silly place, and we are very certain of which fat deposits that Gawain prefers by the end of Seraph, or by his exit from the chapter.
Very much so.
He loves the boobies.
And considering the importance of Passion Lip's contribution to the storyline, I'm not surprised that he was very invested.
Yeah, him and Lip are very cute. I'd ship it. But
I don't even want to think about that.
But yeah, it's okay. She can control the trash compactor so he won't fall in. Or she can at least get him out eventually.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Like, BB is a very interesting individual.
Yeah. Melt surprised me. I had no attachment or knowledge of this character as a character before playing it, so everything about her was new. And it was fairly interesting to have what I read about her from CCC be subverted completely with her growth after the game.
That's the thing. Like, I think the biggest weakness of Seraph is the fact that Melt, the person, is a direct sequel to a game that we never got in the West. Like, the Melt that you have in FGO is a continuation. It is like additional character development on top of what is established about her as a prior in CCC. But of course, we didn't get CCC.
No, but thankfully, by the time I finally have sat down and done this, I had gone through the important cutscenes subtitled on YouTube.
I've been meaning to watch the whole Let's Play that guy did one of these days.
I only focused on main story beat chapters. There was some guide out somewhere that told you what parts you could watch. I was on the Reddit and I did not save the link after I finished it. I kind of assumed you already did it, TBH, or I would have given it to you. So I did have some context for her story, but I thought she did really well with what they put forward in Seraph. But unfortunately, no Westerner that is not willing to get at least invested enough in the Fateverse to understand what the heck was even going on in CCC is going to care.
Yeah, there was a lot of people like me were intending to roll for Melt to begin with, but the number of people who rolled on Melt after playing the storyline shot through the stratosphere.
Yeah, I kind of want to roll on her now that
she's received a lot of strengthening since as well, so she's actually really, really good.
Yeah. So I also don't have any alter egos besides Mecha Liz.
Yeah, I've got Lip, and I've got Passion Lip at like Noble Phantasm 3 or something obnoxious like that. I've got Melt, and I don't know if I've got any others. Oh yeah, Mecha Liz. I forgot about that. Yeah.
But yeah,
despite which I still kind of want to roll on Shitanai because Ilya. But yeah, we'll see if I have chords.
Yeah. So, and after that, I was fairly impressed with the way Seraph ended too. Even though I didn't play it, I thought the ending still had a lot of impact. The way they handle Melt at the end, and the way they take down the big bad of the thing was pretty good. IMO.
Yeah, I think that they put it together quite well. Like it was the right pitch of ending. I think it wasn't rushed the way Salem was or anything like that. It didn't have the complete mood whiplash of plunging the sword deeply into the, and didn't have a completely meaningless ending the way Shimosa did.
Yeah,
like the whole point of Shimosa is really to set up Lost Belts. Like it seems to me, Seraph should have been the other chapter, and Shimosa should have been an event. It should have been a 2-week event or something.
Well, thankfully, they've apparently realized this from the fan base calling them out on it, and have made Seraph a main interlude that you can replay whenever you want after the next rerun.
Mm-hmm.
So that just came out. So, and it's worth playing, even if you haven't played CCC. As long as you go do a quick wiki read and get the broad strokes of how the Moon Cell universe works, you can understand what's going on just fine.
Come to think of it, Shimosa's actually structured exactly like an event as well. Like it's got the same structure as the Prism event.
Yeah, I'm about to say you could totally do it that way, make it a boss event or something.
Yeah, it's got the exact same layout and structure, both in terms of the way the narrative is put together and the battles. It's the same as Prisma Causeway.
I had this thought too, and my thought was somebody higher up said, "Yeah, that's great, but not everybody's played CCC, so maybe we should swap them."
Yeah, because that event, like, if you watch the story in real time the way I did without skipping everything, that event, you spend a lot of time with the story, not nearly as much time with the fighting as you do in most events of that type. There's way more writing.
It is really long for an event. It is huge for a event, and it is not one that needs to be missed because there is a lot of foreshadowing about things like the nature of beasts and how they work. Stuff that I gather will be relevant later and already has been relevant. A lot of world building there, and you just you can't get any of that without playing it. But it's an event, so it's time locked, which is why I rushed through it to at least save the cutscenes because I didn't know they were doing a main interlude at the time and that I would eventually get to play it. But
nobody else did either. But so, it falls into the same category as the Prisoner in the Tower story, where it will just keep coming back again and again and again and again. Like every time you fall asleep, you're either going to end up in another world or you're going to have another chat with Dantes. Like that's what happens.
Yeah, Dantes is like guarding your brain. So,
though to my knowledge, they still haven't really given any explanation for why he seems to be so dedicated to that task.
Yeah. It's been set up since literally like the second or third major event in the game, but we don't have a finish to that plot thread yet.
Yeah, as of having finished Gotterdammerung, they still haven't explained it, even though they keep invoking it.
Yeah, at this point, I guess Protag just accepts it as normal, like it's just a thing that Dantes does.
Well, the amount of times he has out of body experiences at this point is getting to be like he would have been declared a major religious figure by most religions at this point.
Yeah, dude should really stop taking naps. My poor
Yeah.
girl is just so done with being sent to parallel worlds anytime she takes a nap.
Yeah, I didn't actually mention that, did I? But yeah, I did finish Lost Belt 2, and it ends in an unutterably depressing way, as most Lost Belts do. Like they really want to hammer home the fact that you are consistently a committer of genocide, and you need to carry this with you everywhere you go, because the cost is that high for restoring humanity. Like you're just a horrible, horrible individual, but there's nothing that you can do about it. It's you or them.
Yeah, there's I imagine that will be a little less a focus in the last two Lost Belts because of where they are and what the foreshadowing has been about with them.
Yeah,
Just from
I've
the little bit I've
kept
read.
I haven't read anything about them. Zero. Absolutely zilch. Other than the fact that there are new servants added to the servant list, I don't know anything about it. I'm being very careful to cultivate that.
I incidentally stumble on stuff if I decide to go to the Reddit and scroll through, I will see some things. And that's about as far as my extent in the research goes. But in general, I try to keep the main story plot beats unspoiled. But it's really hard when everybody talks about them all the dang time everywhere on the internet inside the Circle's main.
No, I just don't. I don't click on anything with spoiler tags on it ever. Too tempting.
That doesn't save me. I still get drive-by spoilers. But got a lot of drive-by spoilers go into the...
They're pretty good at controlling that on the FGO Reddit, though. Like, the mods have been very, very thorough about that. They will outright ban you if you spoil people, and that'll be it. You don't get a second chance.
So yeah, I got a lot of it when I went to TV Tropes for the Shimosa stuff.
I don't go to TV Tropes for it at all. Too dangerous.
Yeah, it was an incredibly dangerous move, but I did get more drive-by spoilers than I would have liked.
Yeah.
On my way to the recap page and the characters page, there was a lot going through that my eyes caught glances of words, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, just don't go to TV Tropes at all if you don't want to be spoiled.
Thankfully, I didn't
you want
get
to
enough
have anything
context.
left of your afternoon.
Yeah.
Also that.
Well, they've gotten pretty woke, so they've deleted a lot of the fun tropes.
Why? Why do they have to ruin everything?
I do not know, man. It's just in their nature. But yeah, so Seraph was pretty good, second best after Salem, I think. In general, it was a filler arc before Lost Belts, so you can't complain too much. They were giving you something while they sorted out a much more thought out and deeper story later. So
yeah, I hope that the Lost Belt narrative as it moves forward sort of it progresses a bit, because it's got a little bit of a edgy Monster of the Week vibe at the moment.
Yeah,
like based on the first two. And it's like, oh well, I mean, it's not like there's anything wrong with those stories. It's just that you can't keep doing the same story and piling on more despair, because you'll just become numb to it.
Yeah. So we really could use some wins for the pro tags here. So, but maybe we will see them, maybe we won't. We'll see. The next thing is the prologue to Arc 2. I did that. And that thing was
trying to...
Oh, lag. Holy crap. Pickle.
They do a reasonable job of trying to make the bad guys sympathetic in the Lost Belts, but ultimately the problem with trying to make the Cryptas into sympathetic characters is that if you're a Type Moon person at all, you know what Magi are like, and it's very hard to sympathize with a Magus under any circumstances, because they're all bastards.
Yeah. And so before my lag spike hit, you came in right in the middle of while I was trying to get dead air back because I didn't know I was disconnected.
Yay, dead air.
So yeah, I finished the prologue for the Lost Belts and a little bit of the first chapter. That prologue, doing it all at once, back to back to back, is actually really long.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it was like I would do them each time that quest popped up because it was that day in universe. I really liked that. That was something I didn't expect and quite enjoyed.
Yeah, I did not do that. I zipped through it because there were either rewards for doing it at the time, or I was worried that it wouldn't show up.
No, there was legit like a pile of quartz for having done it at that time.
Yeah, so I would go in, do the fight, and skip all the cutscenes because I wasn't in the mood to sit there and do the story right then, or I didn't have time or something. So I did that. I did all the reading all at once, and it took like 2.5 hours. That's a really long prologue.
There are pretty much every visual novel has ridiculous logorrhea. Like, you can probably tell the same story with a lot less words.
Yeah, and it is exacerbated here when you do it all at once. So keep that in mind if you ever try to backlog and skip events and say, oh, I'll go back and watch it later if I'm interested, because if you get too many of them back to back and you've already done all the fights, you're just reading and trying to get to the point where you got to play again for a very long time. The introduction for Lost Belt 2 was actually really long as well. All the cutscenes and that probably... I just got to the second arrow on the third or fourth node. I think the third node. And yeah, it's a lot of text for the opening of that Lost Belt, because it's got to set up everything. It's got to set up the whole arc and what you're going to be in for, and the characters still don't know anything, so stuff has to be explicitly explained to the player in detail. And because this is Nasu, that means you're going to be there a while, because there's a lot of stuff he wants to talk about that he had great ideas for. So it was quite a bit of a drawing experience, but I think I'm starting to come to the end of that little bit at the start of this arc, and are finally starting to get into the meat of what's actually happening. So we have flown the kite. The kite flying has been successful. Is where I'm at in the story ball.
I see.
And we are on our way to the rebel camp.
Mysterious.
And Gawain will fight for huge boobs.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's that.
One day, thank you.
Yep. So my next point is the reason I played FGO to begin with and got back into it after this. So this is one I'm sure y'all want to hear, and anybody that follows the show will want to hear. A new Dresden Files book came out.
Finally.
I listened to it all at once in 2 days.
I wanted to, but I need something to listen to while I work, so I'm only halfway through it. No spoilers. Strictly
Okay.
No spoilers.
I didn't intend to, because Vol hasn't read it yet either.
Yeah.
So broad strokes. Well, so we'll get to the reason I was playing FGO for, because of Dresden Files. I needed something to do with my hands while I was listening to the book. Yeah. But I needed something I could do completely brainlessly while listening to the audiobook. Because I wanted to focus on what was going on.
There's a lot going on in the book.
So it was the third anniversary, or the tail end of the third anniversary when the book came out in FGO. And this meant all the daily quests were half off in AP. So I just sat there and killed doors and hands for many, many hours listening to Peace Talks.
Yeah. So, Peace Talks so far. Well, for you, you've finished it, but for me, I'm only halfway through.
So, impressions on Peace Talks are a very difficult thing to give.
Without spoilers, yes.
Well, not even without spoilers, just because of the nature of this story arc. It's a two-parter. Mm-hmm. And we were told it's going to be a two-parter before it started. But it is a two-parter. And without the second half, it's hard to call what's what in this, and how
what's a real plot thread and what's something that's just mental twitching on the author's part.
Yeah, it's hard to get a grasp of what's super duper important. And there's one aspect of this entire story that Fern's already bumped into.
Oh yeah, you've run into it very early on.
That just drives you up the wall. And you're going to be screaming at this book. The whole book. Is it like Rebuild of Evangelion 3.0, where every problem in the story is caused because nobody will talk to anyone else?
Yes.
Yes.
It's exactly that.
There is a certain element of Harry's life that if he would just open his dang mouth and tell the other person that has a legal right to know about it, so many problems would be solved instantly.
To be fair, I'm amazed he hasn't put it together himself. Everybody else has.
Yeah, and
We're
the
trying not to
mental
be ultra vague, super vague here, but
Butcher has to go through so many internal mental gymnastics in Harry's narration to justify why he doesn't just open his mouth and say something.
To be 100% fair, it is entirely consistent with Harry's character to either shoot his mouth off or to go through ridiculous, pointless contortions over something rather than spitting it out.
yes.
Yes. So,
This is entirely within character for both of them to be incredibly stubborn.
but it comes off in the most frustrating way possible
You just
while
want
reading.
to reach into the book and bang their heads together, really. Just
It may be
freaking
in
talk.
it may be plausible in character, but at this point in their growth, I feel like they should just open their dang mouths and talk to each other. This
Yeah.
is not difficult. But this whole book's
Act
conflict.
like you guys are gonna live to be how many hundreds of years old? Just act like grown ass adults already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of,
As a-
they finally made Murphy or Karen and or I'll say Murphy because Karen's a word now. But it's they finally made Murphy and Dresden stop acting like children with their relationship.
that kind of happened at the end of Skin Game. Murph just basically said, "Okay, screw it. Let's just do this properly. Stop
And
screwing
they are-
around and start screwing
they are-
around."
They are now a proper together couple that is not acting like children, but they're like tsundere teenagers for the entire story until the last page of Skin Game.
Yeah.
Lol.
And they finally got their act together, and it's so refreshing.
And yeah, it's fine because Harry's off being stupid about other things instead.
Like, oh, here we go. Marsters is gonna have to waffle through 20 minutes of them going, maybe, until we finally get to them talking like adults. And then they will decide they can't decide right now. 'Cause that's how it went.
Yeah,
And
that's
whenever
how it
they
was
had a
before.
serious,
That sounds
serious
like an
conversation.
excuse to me.
A lot of it was.
Yeah.
It was both Harry and Murphy making excuses. And they've kind of just realized at this point, like, they could get murdered horribly at any given time. And
Yeah, they live lives of action heroes.
given the events of Skin Game, it really drove home that, yes, their lives are potentially very fragile.
Especially now that Murphy has not debilitating, but permanent injury from what happened in Skin Game.
Yeah, just to put it without... I think we can not spoil Skin Game, but everything else I think before that's probably fair game at this point. But Murphy gets the ever-loving crap kicked out of her in Skin Game.
Yeah, a major player, she goes toe-to-toe with it and gets destroyed.
Yeah, she just gets absolutely wrecked.
Well, she's a muggle.
She is a muggle.
So, I mean, she should have known that was a plausible outcome.
But yeah, as far as muggles go, she's been kind of holding her own in a lot of ways for quite some
With-
time.
But
With
I mean,
help.
if you're going to raise the stakes the way the Butcher has over the course of books, eventually there's a cap to what a muggle can do.
Exactly. And once they start reaching outside of their league, they get hurt badly.
Yeah. And so, but thankfully this has a positive impact on her character, where she is now, I could die literally any time if I hang out with you, but I'm not going to stop hanging out with you, so let's just act like adults.
Yeah, let's just do this adult thing.
So
that
that
was a very
is
refreshing thing. That
But, oh my goodness, Harry, just open your mouth and talk to your family. Good
Yeah.
lord, idiot.
No,
Maybe-
he has to sit in the corner and sulk.
He's got to sit
Oh,
in the
he's-
corner and sulk.
This isn't the first time that he's just refused to tell people things they need to know or anything like that.
And-
He had
it's-
this big character arc in it leading up to Changes. Like, Changes was the big, like, this is all of those chickens coming back to roost on him. And
Like, didn't
crap
we
all over
have,
the place.
we had like a book and a half or two books of you figuring out why this is a bad idea, dude.
Yeah.
But he still just will not open his dang mouth. And he's like, oh, well, he might be racist towards them. And I'm not kidding,
Well-
that's the real reason.
To be fair, let's just say it's Ebenezer who's the problem again.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
Harry is thinking he is psychic and can read his grandfather's reactions to everything. Like, sorry, dude. Might have dropped some minor spoilers by accident there, but most people are through changes by now if they're reading Dresden, or they're going to
like
forget
I
what
said,
it is.
I think everything pre-skin game it's fair game at this point. They've been out long enough.
It's Skin Game 2, for that matter.
Skin game 2 for that matter, but it's the last book, so
But yeah, he cannot tell his Ebenezer something very important that Ebenezer honestly should have been told as soon as he figured out his relationship to Harry.
he gets
Or Harry
actually
figured out his
called out
relationship to Ebenezer.
on it at one point, and all he does is he just kind of through it.
Yeah, the usual voice of reason is like, Harry, go to sleep, think on it, and then open your mouth and tell him.
I do still like seeing Michael turn up. He is the perfect example of a lawful good character.
He's your
He's also
typical-
one of the few stable moral compasses in that story.
He is.
He's a less aggressive version of your typical Southern Christian dad.
Yeah, he is just a good person. On
Less
every
aggressive, he
axis.
only hacks demons apart with a sword.
Yeah,
Well, he
but
does that.
he's pretty chill with his family, which most Southern Christian dads are not.
And if you mess with his kids, he will rearrange your face. But aside from that,
They finally hung the dang lampshade on him and his relationship with Molly since Cold Days.
yeah, that was gonna happen sooner or later.
Because it's clear Butcher doesn't want to address this in this story arc, but he needs to find
He
a
set
reason to
it
buy
up.
time.
Yeah, it's
He's been setting it up over and over. They keep talking about it.
Yeah, but Butcher wants to keep putting it off for some dang reason, or save it for an impact maybe at the very end of this story arc. So he finally just puts a lampshade on the whole thing and says, okay, everybody knows, but they don't know explicitly yet.
Yeah, or they strongly suspect. I mean, that's Cold Days. You can spoil Cold Days.
Yeah, like Molly's the winter lady now.
Yes.
And so Michael knows something's up, but she hadn't come home since then.
Yeah. But again,
Which-
it's still entirely within character.
And so he knows something's up with his daughter because of the way, in the little bit of communication they have, she acts. But she ain't sat down and told him anything yet.
Yeah.
The drawback, of course, to that plot line is that that basically gives Molly an excuse to become a perpetual teenager.
Yeah, no. She's like it's written basically that sooner or later the mantle will overtake her.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the last Winter Lady was also a perpetual teenager.
Yes. And
Yeah,
was a
that's
pretty
what I
horrible
mean,
person
is
before
that-
she got the mantle.
It's like she's going to go from being a stroppy teenager to being a fickle, fey, stroppy teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a side story that was released in the interim that was Inside Jobs, the compilation, that actually highlights
So
Molly
briefcases.
briefcases. The most recent side story compilation.
Yeah.
I would just like to make a note that I deplore that pun.
Yeah, I know.
I like briefcases a lot. I think that's a solid pun. I'm not so big on side jobs though. I know he has theming, but still. But yeah, overall it's hard to judge because there's a lot of plot threads in this book that don't get resolved, end abruptly, or seem to end abruptly, and all seem to be building up to this big climax that we don't get because it's in the next book.
Yeah. But going through the book, at least for the first half, you can tell that he's just kind of gotten on a roll writing.
Yeah, this one
Yeah,
adds
which is
more
like the
and
worst
more
thing that
and
can happen
more.
to a long-running writer,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
if the editor isn't aggressive enough with the cutting.
Yeah,
Normally,
and
when a Dresden File book starts, like the problems were just heaped onto Harry with a big shovel at the start of the game, the book. This
Yeah, you
one,
got, like-
it's a dump truck. It's just
Yeah.
so much stuff just keeps adding on.
This is why it's
It-
good. That's why it's turned into the 7th Harry Potter book.
yeah,
Yeah,
it is
exactly.
both of these books were originally one book for those that don't know.
Mm.
And at some point in the editing process, and it's very obvious this happened and the books had to be rewritten to accommodate it points in the story, you can tell where stuff just got switched around and cut because the book got split into two books, into Peace Talks and Battlegrounds. Thankfully, Butcher was kind enough to ensure that Battleground was done before Peace Talks was finished, so that we know it's coming and don't have to sit on a cliffhanger with a setup arc and no payoff. For
So how many years was the gap between Skin Game and
Thankfully,
Peace Talks?
Skin
Over
Game
half a
ended at a
decade.
good point, so it wasn't too bad. Like there's a
But
load of
what was the length? What was the length? How many years?
5 or
I need
6.
I need to look this up.
I think it came out in 2014.
Ask the internet.
So I think it was 2014, May 27th, 2014.
Yeah, there you go. So it's been 6 years.
Over 6. Oh yeah, over 6
Six
years.
and a bit. We had briefcases in there, and we had, I think, the Bigfoot book, which is also
No, that one.
briefcases.
No, that was Inside Jobs. The whole book was Inside Jobs.
No, it's in briefcases. Was it Inside Jobs as well?
Oh, yeah, I think it was because I remember skipping chapters that briefcases repeated.
Let me see. Back up. No, it's not in
I have to-
briefcases. Side Jobs. It is briefcases.
Okay, so it was just in briefcases.
Yeah.
Oh, I already read them in the Bigfoot book.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where that came from. So yeah, Peace Talks, hard to call. Good start though, and the action scenes, though few, are pretty good. And we finally get to see certain characters get their combat on that we don't normally get to see. One in particular, who we've been waiting for a real long time to see what they can really do.
Yeah, there's been
And,
a few characters who you just want to see what they do when they've let loose.
Yep. And there's a fight at the end of the book that's a one-on-one that Harry has to pull because he usually winds up in this situation at the end of the books.
Because
And,
of course he does.
Because of course he does. And it is fairly interesting what he does to solve the problem of that particular fight. The fight itself is pretty good, but I think the context around that fight was done pretty well. So the fight scenes are pretty good, but they are few and far between in this one.
Yeah.
It is mostly just a whole lot of dialogue and exposition setting up for a battleground.
So is this like the whole ensemble is present this time?
Oh yeah, the whole gang's here. Like when the peace talks actually start, it's Cameo City.
Yeah.
So we don't know which of these people are going to be relevant, but literally everybody and their sister is in Chicago for this story arc. So any of them could be relevant.
Yeah, that's not a spoiler. That's on the back of the book. The priest talks it's referring to is basically getting all these powers together under the Accords to discuss the Fomor issue.
Yeah, and peace
Fomor
talks.
being weird fish people, for those who haven't read it.
Yeah, they're either Celtic or
They seem to be a bit of a grab bag from various different mythologies. Like there's a bit of Lovecraft in there. There's a bit of Celtic.
It's North Europe, but not the UK.
Yeah. Also, we do find out what actually happened to Lovecraft.
Oh yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah, they mentioned it offhand. Yeah, Lovecraft and got exactly the end that you'd expected him to.
Yeah.
Eaten by squid?
Yes, squid thing, possibly.
Yeah. They mentioned Cthulhu's somewhere involved doing something.
Yeah, Cthulhu is actually a thing.
Oh, he was the thing in First Job or whatever it was, Molly's story.
Yeah.
So his cult is the main villain of that one, so we knew he was a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. There's more stuff I could talk about if we were doing spoiler talk, but we're trying to keep it vague.
Yeah, keep it vague until later.
Yeah, after Val's read the book, we can do an on-show spoiler talk about it and go over some stuff. But
Please don't apply pressure for me to read a book quickly, especially one I don't own yet.
Well, I'm not going to apply pressure until Battleground comes out. Because there really
yeah, but you said there's going to be in like a month or something.
It was 75 days on the 15th, so a little over 70 days.
Ugh. How am I going to read 10 books in that time with my 2 gacha games to play?
You gotta put down the ducky if you want to play the saxophone.
But,
yeah.
Yeah. The advantage of working on the road, I guess, is books are a constant companion.
I can't get the Bluetooth in my car to work, so I can't listen to audiobooks in the car either.
Oh, I just put my phone literally in the cup holder next to the uh, transmission, and
I
just
use this wonderful new technology. They're like AirPods, except they've got a cable, so you
you
can't
mean
lose them.
headphones?
I'm too scared to do that. Remember, I'm not a very experienced driver.
Yeah.
I need all of the sensory input I can get, and
Mate.
since my car has a CVT gearbox, the drivetrain makes a racket.
Oh joy.
I had one of those suction cup things you could stick on your windshield or on your dashboard, and you could stick your phone and clip it to it, and it worked really good until it became summer.
Yeah, as soon as that suction cup dries out, that's the end of that.
Well, it's not the glue; it sucks with air pressure, and that worked fine. The problem is the plasticky stuff expands when it gets hot.
Yeah.
And so it'll just keep popping off and won't stick anymore in the summer, and it'll make your phone fall down.
Yeah, the plastic and a lot of the really cheap ones will actually just outright expire, especially out here under the.
My phone holder cost me, I think, $4. So
yeah,
I had one melt on me. I live in an area of the world with 100-degree summers, with with a black car that has no garage to park in, so it sits in the open sunlight.
130 in your crazy moon temperature. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe I'm just old because I continue to think that AirPods are a ridiculously dumb idea.
I don't know any. I usually dislike owning technology that looks like it's small enough for me to swallow. I'm not sure why. that's my standard. Like if instinctively my impression upon looking at it is that I could swallow that, then I'm scared to use it.
That I understand that, but I have a perfectly legitimate reason for it, and that if you leave anything in my immediate vicinity, it will get chewed.
Right.
This is a problem. It's been a problem forever. I will eat anything and start munching on it if it's in hand grabby distance. And if there's nothing in hand grabby distance, I'll literally eat my fingers and knuckles.
Huh.
I spend a lot of time carefully breaking my nail biting habit. I don't need to start chewing other things. Thanks.
Yeah. I had to put capsaicin on my fingertips and the back of my knuckles for a while to make me not do it as much, because I won't notice I'm doing it. I'll finish doing something and my knuckle would be chewed off.
Oh, you'll certainly know capsaicin.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So yeah, as far as Dresden Files goes, I'm very much enjoying just actually being able to go back into that universe and seeing these characters again.
Yeah,
I think I might actually just have to reread the whole series, because I've read all of the books I've read only once each, and that was quite a long time ago now.
Yeah, Maggie is the most adorable thing on two legs.
Maggie is overly adorable, IMO, and Butcher's pushing his luck with how cute he can make her without making her unrealistic.
To the point where you're half expecting something horrible to happen to her?
No, I don't think the story is structured in a way where that would work. But I don't think that would work with the story structure because of how important she is to Harry's character.
There is, of course, the... you've got to remember that because it's a first-person book and it's a running theme in the series, that everything is pushed through the lens of Harry.
Yeah, and that's going to give you incredibly neon-lit clues on who's a potential target at what point in the story.
Yeah. What, do you mean to say he's not a completely reliable, objective narrator?
I wonder why you give us that idea.
Well, they play with that in Skin Game, and they play with it again in a weird way in Peace Talks.
I mean, it's kind of that was the twist of Changes as well.
Yeah. So
Changes and Ghost Story.
Yeah, Butcher has been playing with this trope lately a lot, and it's a cool thing to play with. But I hope he doesn't burn it out, because you'll notice he does it again in this book in a different way than the other two times. He's at least varying it up in how he does it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, Changes in Changes in Ghost Story. Basically, the entire book, or both books, Harry had his head lodged firmly up his ass. Skin Game, he plays with it, but he's intentionally messing with the reader.
Yeah. it's not as big of an example in this one. It's just for one event that happens.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you're not at that point yet, so I don't want to spoil it. But
Yeah,
he
that's
does mess with perspective. He does mess with perspective again.
I am appreciative that Gray turns up again, though. I do like Gray.
Goodman Gray is a really fun.
He's a great character.
True. He's a true neutral character done right.
Yes. Is that where Harry's concerned, where he's just pure asshole?
Yeah, I like Butters getting. I'm not sure what it says about a Knight of the Cross having a double werewolf threesome.
Yeah, it's because Butters. Okay, that's happened.
That's already more information than I want.
Yeah, it just kind of comes out of left field because,
Like, the Butcher has been on this kick lately with Butters where he needs to show that Butters has more sexual experience than everybody else by total accident.
Yeah, so it's starting to become this running gag.
And it's always with the werewolves.
Yeah. So yeah, Butters, I like Butters' arc. He's gone from kind of this wimpy little side character who was never meant to get much screen time, but he ended up basically
to a Jedi.
He got his moment in this limelight where he was the sidekick for a whole book, and now he's a Jedi.
He's a Jewish Jedi Knight.
Oh wait, that's skin game spoilers.
And I think we can break that rule and just spoil skin game. It's been 2014, dude.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's a Jewish Jedi Knight of the Cross. And that actually, finally, we figure out why Butcher did that. Because it was a cute thing and really awesome when it happened. But you don't think it's setting up for anything? It is.
It is.
And there's a whole chapter of exposition detailed with the characters going over why the heck was that sword made into a lightsaber.
Yeah. I just went through that chapter. I'm actually surprised Uriel didn't turn up and be vague at everyone.
Yeah, he could have came and said vagueness is here, and this is a vagueness.
This is a vagueness. It's kind of what he does.
Well, at least we know he can carry somebody in a house.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what was going on with that.
Well, actually, I think he'd given up his grace by that point.
He'd given up his grace at that point, so he was
just
mortal.
acclimating to being able to make a decision.
It wasn't really a decision. He was just told to do it.
Like, hey, Mr. Sunshine, can you at least carry your end of the blanket?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see in Battleground.
Yeah.
And next week, Fern will probably have finished it. There are a few things I want to highlight and talk about when he finishes it, specifically regarding a few characters that I both really like their stuff for, and some characters I don't think you've even been introduced to yet that I really don't like.
Oh dear. Let me think. New characters that have been added this book. I haven't run into any so far.
The important one is very late in the story.
Right.
So it's almost near the end.
Yeah. I I've noticed a couple of continuity errors as well, but they're only minor things.
I didn't notice any going through it, and I was paying pretty close attention. So I think we're good.
The confrontation with Mab at the end of Skin Game happen in the Better Future Society?
No, it happened in Marcone's office.
Okay, I thought that was in the Better Future Society.
No, Marcone's business headquarters is not the BFS's HQ. That's different places. The BFS is separate from his gang dealings because the BFS has legitimate people involved in it too.
Okay, no, I could swear Harry had been in there before, not being a ghost.
Yeah, he has been in the BFS before as a ghost.
Yeah, he was in there as a ghost, but I could swear he's been in there as not a ghost as well.
No, he has not. It is a major point of angst. Yeah, it's a point of angst that he has not been in the Better Future Society building since then.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting stuck, because I could swear he has been, but yeah.
Yeah, he has not. He went to Marcone's personal headquarters, which is separate from the BFS.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's that. If you like the series, it's more of it, and the story is finally continuing.
And we can give you a more proper review in 74 days. Or however long we got until the Battleground comes out.
Once Battleground comes out, yeah. All right.
So yeah,
We
that's
are
media for the week.
We are approaching overtime, so
We have a few topics, but there's
anything
one that's
else?
important and worth talking about.
Largely because we've been hamping on this, well, YouTube particularly, been hamping on it for a while.
It is. I think it's more important for us to talk about it because nobody else is.
Mm.
At least not in the context we would.
Not in the theme of video game.
Right.
Right.
Is
Do it.
Vol
It's
still
your
lagging?
country.
Is Vol still lagging?
I'm wrestling with my computer.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Like that, because I was trying to launch PSO2, I think that the app that launches the program has gone AWOL and has decided to do something. I'm not quite sure what.
Something.
But it's,
Because I do want Vol present for this because he's been on. I needed somebody with half Chinese here when I talk about this.
this is like I'm your inward pass. Is that what's going on here?
Exactly.
Oh no.
I can hear Fern's heart sinking.
I need more
So-
hands to palm.
So, if you go into our politics board, which generally I do not recommend anybody do because you're going to get spurred at,
Yeah, don't do that.
but you're going to get flooded with memes from me or get spurred at by anybody else talking in there. But if you go in there, there's a very important topic relevant to video games. And a whole lot of other industries on top of that. My president, if you scroll up, I posted it on 7/16, right before the Bubba Wallace and K-Mac stuff I posted last. And
You're setting the tone when you're putting it after Bubba or before Bubba.
so that I screen capped it from the forums, and somebody's reaction to it that I thought was very apt. My president signed the broadest executive order I've ever read through in its entirety. And it is huge in what it can potentially do. If this thing gets enforced, then the speech Bill Barr made is going to be remembered as an evil empire speech equivalent in the history books. It was that big of a deal, but nobody's talking about this because it covers basically kicking China economically in the balls.
Well, that's provided that anybody cooperates with it.
Yeah, that's why I said this depends on how closely it's enforced, and how thoroughly. And the reason nobody's talking about it because of China is that everybody has their fingers in Chinese something right now that runs a major business. Everyone
stands to lose, and nobody's thinking about, the fact that long term you're going to lose anyway.
Yeah, this is the China problem coming home to roost, and we can't dodge it anymore. And Trump has realized that finally, and he's going after them directly with not sanctions, but an executive order that stops anyone in the U.S. from directly interacting with China through Hong Kong or directly with China itself until they give Hong Kong its autonomy back, which ain't going to happen.
Specifically in any way that would bring benefit to the CCP.
Yeah, you cannot exchange money or have the Chinese curry favor with you at all.
And considering the Chinese government controls, when you go to the bathroom in China, that basically cuts out the entire country.
And their laws effectively tie every single company that is in China to the CCP. If you want to do business in China, you need to be tied to a company that is tied directly to the CCP, which puts a big monkey wrench in a whole lot of companies currently doing business over there and the way they've been doing business. And in this EO, the section I want everybody to pay attention to specifically is section 4. It's in the third picture I posted. And it says things such as, to be or have involved all property and interest in property that are in the United States that hereafter come within the United States or are or hereafter come within the possession or control of anyone in the United States of the following persons are blocked and may not be transferred, paid, exported, withdrawn, or otherwise dealt in. And it includes things. I'll try to cut the legal jargon here to make it understandable for English. Any foreign person deemed by the Secretary of State to be in consultation with the following. Where's the part I actually want to read? Dang it. Because this is legal jargon in these EOs and it has to be very precise. They report stuff explicitly with a lot of conjoinders and conjunctions. And that makes this very hard to read normally. So, you're not allowed to be involved at all with anybody who is actively involved in coercing, arresting, detaining, or imprisoning individuals under the authority of, or have been responsible for, or involved in the developing, adopting, or implementing of the laws that stop Hong Kong's autonomy. You can't get money, and nobody can receive a donation from the CCP, period. Nobody can go in there and do business as they used to in Hong Kong. You cannot be used as an outlet to ferry funds to the CCP by just doing regular business, because this is what every single business would do. If they wanted to sell to China, the cheapest and most effective way would be to sell it to Hong Kong and then have Hong Kong relay it to China. Can't do that anymore. China's not special. Yeah, Paul's answering questions in the live show chat. If anybody happens to be listening live, you can ask him and he'll help you out there. You can't do anything with anybody that's involved in doing anything with any persons of Hong Kong if they're operating against freedom in Hong Kong. You cannot, this is a big one, censorship or other activities with respect to Hong Kong that prohibit, limit, or penalize the exercise of freedom, expression, or assembly by citizens of Hong Kong, or that limit access to free and independent print, online, broadcast, or media cannot be the initial big, long, and or conjunction mess I said above. So you can't censor crap. And this includes people in the U.S., this is targeting U.S. companies. So this means all this stuff that's been going on in the entertainment industry cannot continue as censorship under the EO. Now, this is very difficult to enforce, but the fact that there's an EO out right now makes it so companies are going to be a lot less amicable or incentivized to kowtow to China, because it means the feds may come down on them. They would have a real hard time proving it in a court of law, but it would still be a big enough scare to deter some people. It also stops businesses like Tencent. That's why I read the property one in full too. Tencent has gone around and stuck their fingers in every single company in the United States that's involved in entertainment or tech, and even stuck their fingers in some things that are not in those sectors. And they are trying to get their money stuck out of state. It's much like the real estate Chinese companies that are buying up land in Australia and in New Zealand. They're trying to get their money out of the country because they know China's in trouble. And what we have now in the U.S. is the U.S. saying, you can't do business with these people anymore. Under the CEO.
This is a wartime sanction. This is a declaration of economic war. And that's why it's strange that so few people are talking about it, because this is a notch above the Cold War. It doesn't have, nuclear mutually assured destruction out in the open the way the Cold War did, but this is a situation where an open war has been declared, where in the Cold War it hadn't been declared. Everybody was just pussyfooting around it. Like this type of sanction is a situation where you have driven a sharp line in between two countries' economies, and they are not going to interact anymore because of the danger, the existential threat that one is viewed as presenting toward the other one. Yes. So this is going to impact the entire. If this is enforced as written, this will impact the entire world in a very profound way.
Yeah, this is a complete shakeup of geopolitics and intercontinental business. It will not be the same after this.
That like there are two economic powers in this world, grand total: the US and China. The Chinese because they have unlimited fake money, and the US because they have the only reservoir of real money that isn't tied directly to oil.
Yes. So there is a bunch more in this EO you can go through that puts more restrictions on everything. My favorite one was politicians can't take donations from any company or the CCP itself involved with the CCP or the CCP itself. I thought
How's
that one was
the
pretty
DNC
good.
going to fund their election campaign?
That's what I said. So a whole lot of people are in trouble with that one.
It's probably worth going through the list again for the sake of those who are listening or who don't remember. So Tencent is the largest games publisher in the world. Period. End. It's not even close. Provided that you are crediting Chinese wealth as actual wealth, it's the biggest. There is no exceptions. A lot of people don't seem to realize that. They probably think that Activision or EA are the biggest. No, it's Tencent by a country mile. So
Yes, not even close.
They basically are in some way connected to the production of every game in China. But elsewhere, they own 100% of Riot Games. There are no other financial interests. Only Tencent. Tencent owns Riot Games and everything that's produced under their banner.
Ironically, this may protect the 100% companies they involve in, because you cannot make an executive order like this retroactive. That'd be illegal. That's not in the purview of the president to do. That would have to be a legislative branch that does that.
You fundamentally can't prosecute someone for something that you make illegal after they've already done it.
Yeah.
So okay, next on the list, Epic Games, 40% stake. I don't know if that's the largest single stake. It might be. I don't know how carved up Epic Games is, but they have a 40% stake in Epic Games, and this was put in place like 8 years ago or something like that, and it was more or less the trigger to the Fortnite juggernaut. They provided the money that propped up their abolition of Unreal Engine subscription, which is the new royalty-based system that they're using, which has made UE4 really, really popular. They basically were able to embark on the whole games as a live service experiment as a result of the money that Tencent was pouring in. And it has turned, Fortnite into the single most profitable game
ever.
Yeah. Okay. So that might sound strange, but in addition to having a 40% stake in Epic, they have an 11.5% stake in Bluehole, which are the people in charge of PUBG. So they have a financial stake in the major competitor as well as the dominant title in the that whatchamacallit genre.
It's one of those things that was a very clear indicator that this is a get your money out of the country ploy on Tencent's end.
So the rumor also is that they're in the process. This is a rumor in financial circles, which are even more unreliable than regular rumors. But that the rumor is that they're in the process of a complete acquisition of Bluehole.
Yeah. So they have their fingers substantially in everything, and they are now locked at whatever funding they put in, and they cannot put any more China bucks in.
They own a 5% stake in Ubisoft.
Yeah,
they were one of the companies that came in to prevent the hostile takeover of Ubi by Vivendi. I'm not quite sure what Vivendi was attempting to do. Like, I don't know what their final objective was, but ultimately they've been trying to increase their stake year over year and try and get rid of the founder and put it under their control. But I don't know the reasoning behind it or what they want to do. But Tencent is just a silent partner with a small share in it. They haven't tried to take control of it, since part of the premise of their investment was that they were trying to prevent a hostile takeover. But basically this has brought Ubisoft into the Chinese censorship train, since this is also the basis for the marketing of Ubisoft games in China. So yeah, Ubi already censors stuff, but normally it's for SJW reasons and not to appease China. But now they're on team appease the Chinese censors.
Yep. Activision Blizzard's one at 5% too, ain't it?
Yep, they're at 5% as well, more or less for the same reason, to secure their distribution and their commitment to censorship. And ironically, this was another anti-Vivendi move, more or less, because they decided that they're going to buy back Vivendi's stake and become an independent Activision Blizzard, and Tencent used that chance to purchase 5% of the company because of the stake that had been bought back, because they need to fund that buyback. So they basically sold off that part of it. So yep, they control part of Activision Blizzard, which are well known to censor for the Chinese market. They own 80% of Grinding Gear Games. The New Zealand company makes Path of Exile.
Mm-hmm.
Why Path of Exile increasingly resembles a Chinese gold farm.
Yep. And
It was a fun game when it launched.
yeah, I still know people that play it and say it's fun.
It's still growing, as I understand it. It continues to grow, and they continue to put out content for it. It's got a reasonable reputation. Allegedly, they have not had to take any cues from above. They have continued operating as per normal. Allegedly, there's no way to prove one way or the other in a situation like this. But they haven't attempted to aggressively tamper with the business plan either. Like, there's no changes to the in-game economy have eventuated, which is what people were afraid of. But the thing is that you don't actually need to intervene to have control if you own 80% of the company. They know that they're beholden to you. That's as simple as that. Even if you give them 100% free reign, they know ultimately that they can't do anything that you don't like because you own them. Yeah, just because you self-censor doesn't mean you're not being censored.
Mm-hmm. They also can quickly run down most of these in this patch.
Yeah, they're small ones.
The Supercell's a big one, but it's not one we can really talk about because we don't play many of their games.
Because we don't live in Northern Europe.
Yeah, it's Supercell. They make the Clash of and the Clash games that were really popular for about 4 or 5 years. Royale was pretty good, but
Clash Royale was fun.
The other ones are just, the standard mobile cash grab games, but they make a ton of money, and Tencent has 84.3% in that company. Platinum Games has an undisclosed investment. We don't know any terms of this deal, but it started this year. Platinum has been recovering from financial turmoil for a while, and they bailed them out again. It's like, how bad are you guys at managing money, Platinum? Come on.
Well, also, on that note, though, consider that there's going to be a lot of companies that are recovering from financial turmoil over the course of the next couple of years.
Yes,
that are going to want an angel investor to come along.
And this is, I think, part of why Trump was talked into this executive order. I was going to bring that up. Because we're going to have so many companies with their stocks fairly low and taking a slow recovery. Well, we are seeing an overall spike in the stock market and towards recovery after the Wu flu crash, because I refuse to call this thing by its proper name. It's some companies are not. Smaller game dev studios, smaller entertainment studios, smaller mom and pop businesses, smaller businesses like mine that work in bigger industrial stuff just ain't selling as much. And we're taking a while to really move past this damage. And this is a perfect opportunity for a company like Tencent to come in and buy percentages in literally everything. And totally control the ideological and censorship flow of every piece of media and every product that hits the Western market. That's what could have happened if this EO had not come in place. Now there is less opportunity. They still have Europe, but even Europe's starting to sour to China. And I think the UK passed something recently that, while not anywhere close to as, bending China over as this EO is, they still have passed other stuff.
Well, the major one that is being implemented amongst Five Eyes is turfing out Huawei. The New Zealand has been too spineless to do it. They're claiming that, they can't afford it, blah, 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 at the moment. But they're going to have to. I don't even see another option. Like, why would you try and stick with them? You have an intelligence agreement with these other countries, and they're all wanting to turf out Huawei. You can't be the one guy that doesn't, unless you just want to secede from the agreement.
Yeah. 70, like even Uganda, I think, said they're going to take Huawei out. Like, dude, your country. They're not even on the same page that Uganda's on here. You don't want to be below Uganda on the uptake on anything.
Oh dear.
So yeah, a whole bunch of other companies, notable ones that we have brought up sometimes, Paradox Interactive, Funcom, they have 29% in. It's a very recent purchase though, like late 2019, I think.
Would it have been sooner than that? Like, what would they have done the bailout for Secret World
Yeah.
and ruined it?
It wouldn't surprise me if they'd put money in.
Yeah.
Like, just because that's the day of the acquisition doesn't mean they didn't have additional funding agreements.
Yeah.
At other points. I mean, they want to acquire the whole of Funcom, but I mean, I'm not sure why, unless they're planning to turn those resources somewhere else, because Funcom don't do anything.
No, they really don't.
Like,
not anymore.
They're dead in the water.
Mhm.
They operate a neutered version of Secret World. They operate Conan Exiles, and they've cancelled pretty much everything else as far as I'm aware.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like 2 years ago that Conan Exiles became a thing. So
that was just.
Well, I mean, that was probably older than that. 2 years ago is probably when Conan Exiles was quote released unquote.
Oh, yeah. It wallowed in early access for quite some time.
Yeah, but that just means that it's been years, literally years, since they've done anything. So it's worth noting that China is culturally radically different from the West. Like, people like to think, oh, well, Japan is culturally different from the West. Japan went through a period of modernization and then a period of supervision by the Americans, which have turned Japan very Western compared to most of the Far East.
We sent Douglas MacArthur over there, and he fixed him. He's like, y'all ain't going to be anything but a semi-Western country now, or you're not going to exist.
But the thing is that China had a very much more dramatic experience of being pretty much a fully Far Eastern country, and then having the Cultural Revolution happen, where they tried to burn their own history to the ground. So
that sounds familiar.
What they have is a very anarchic sort of culture composed of government sanctioned dregs of previous cultures that have been sort of kludged together into a very weird and spastic type of cultural identity, which has, the remnants of who they once were, but a whole bunch of other crap that's been crammed in on top by the government. So they have a very strange and abnormal outlook from the point of view of a Westerner. But one of the upshots of this is that the products that they make over there in the entertainment industry have no purchase in the West. It just doesn't work. They actually have very competent coders and programmers and designers, all of the talent that you need to produce games. They've got it over there because they've got so many people. You're going to find talents in amongst that many people, right? Especially considering how keen on eugenics they are. They will ruthlessly weed out the best so that they can trot them out in front of the world. But they've got all the talent, but they don't understand the Western market at all. And as a result, not only do their ideas not have any traction in the West for sales purposes, but their brands don't. So what they really need in order to build a foothold in the West is to have names to put up and work under that people will recognize as having value. So under that rubric, maybe it makes sense to purchase someone like Funcom, who actually has at least got somewhat of a pedigree as a recognized name, even if it's not always recognized for good things. At least they've got, they've got IPs to work with, they've got resources to work with, Western resources to work with, they've got name recognition. They actually have the sort of materials that is needed to work in a foreign market in a way that they just don't in China. and they can't just bring a Chinese brand over because Tencent is still poisonous to most people, largely because of mobile games. Like people associate Tencent very strongly with being nickeled and dimed to death. Even normie gamers do.
Yeah.
So that what they really need is other company names to work under that don't have that. Although I would argue that you should associate Funcom with being nickeled and dimed to death. I'm still salty about Secret World.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are more companies on this list. There are 3 more. There's 2 more on this. Well, there's 1 more that has ownership, and that's Shark Mob. And they're the people that make the Division and the Hitman series. Tencent completely owns them. They have 100% of the company.
No, that X Division and Hitman devs.
Okay. X. Okay, yeah.
Not currently working for Ubisoft.
Yeah, so they're the former developers of those games that went off to make their own company, and Tencent just bought them out entirely. It happened. Discord. Now, Discord's story is a 2-part because it involves the other one, because there's a part in this article that it doesn't cover, that I'm reading anyway, listing all this stuff off. Discord received $158 million in funding last year, plus an undisclosed amount from Tencent. The problem is they're now owned by Microsoft. And guess who owns a chunk of Microsoft? Tencent. Tencent has got its nuts all up in the various divisions of Microsoft. Tencent has its nuts all up in the various divisions of Apple. Tencent has its nuts all up in Twitter and Facebook.
Well, not to mention that Apple and Microsoft probably have hardware production operations that are in China itself.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and all they are outsourcing their labor there, which is now basically illegal by that EO in federal law. So yeah, this is ridiculously huge. Just imagine for a second if Apple has to go to its investors and say, "My dudes, we can't use the Chinese sweatshops anymore, and we already ream people for money on the price markup. What do? Because our stock is going to tank because we cannot increase the price reasonably anymore. We're already at like a $1,300 launch price for a new iPhone. And we cannot use the cheap labor of slaves in China anymore." Just think about what that would do to the price and the stability of the electronics market. That's the scale of potential damage we're talking
I'm
about.
starting to think that open warfare would be better for the economy.
I am too. Like, if we'd have just rolled up and shot these and started shooting people, the economy would not be anywhere near in as much danger as it is with having to do that.
This was ahead things were inevitably going to come to, though, right? Because the Chinese have run their economy in such a reckless way. Like, it was reckless of the West to get so entangled with them, but they've been just as reckless on their end, which is why China's full of cities that nobody lives in, that are constantly, the small army of people are paid to maintain. Because they were generating jobs through infrastructure projects, which for infrastructure that wasn't needed.
Mm-hmm.
Just to keep the economy turning over, to keep producing more real estate, keep producing stuff, making more jobs, employing more people, keeping money circulating, but it's all not real. When the government controls literally everything, none of it is real. Like, currency only has value because the government says that those pieces of paper are to be treated as legal tender. And if the government controls literally everything instead of operating a real free market, that value is arbitrary. And so you end up with these sort of corrosive economies. So what you've got is China furiously running on the log to prevent its own economy from collapsing, and the rest of the world, which is trying to prevent their economy from collapsing as a result of being tethered to China so deeply. So this scenario, one way or another, will play out. If everybody ignores this as executive order, if Trump loses the election and he gets thrown out immediately by Biden, all that's going to do is cause a different type of economic collapse. If you collapse it in a controlled fashion with you as the aggressor, you can at least dictate terms, because China's not ready to go it alone. They will pretend that they are, because they probably the single most arrogant nation on the face of the earth, but they can't survive on their own. They depend on other nations to give their currency, their fake currency, value.
Yeah, because if everybody's just trading paper that can't be moved outside their own country, that paper can start wildly fluctuating in value depending on how much is literally printed or stuck into people's bank accounts. And then nobody can price anything, and then nobody knows what to sell anything for, and eventually you have food shortages because nobody can get paid an adequate amount.
Like,
That's how it happens.
China have done a very good job of turning capitalism into a weapon. Like the capitalism that is run in China is ironically the capitalism that the communists hate so much, where it's ultimately the capitalism is a pet of the big dogs in the government, and it only operates in the way that they say. So they have a pseudo free market, but it is so heavily regulated that the market that they operate is virtually meaningless.
Yeah, it is effectively the government controls and owns everybody.
Yeah, like you are allowed to trade, but you're only allowed to trade when and where and how the government says you are. It's all still trade, so you've basically got this model of an economy which is operating according to specific rules and has, for all appearances from the outside, unless you're in on the fact that it's all fake, it looks like a real economy, and that's why people buy into it. That's why people take investments, because it looks like it's operating as part of a functional economy. But it's not. It's a totalitarian structure that controls every resource within that nation, and they have used that to construct an operating model of an economy in order to present themselves to the world as if they have an economy at all.
Yeah, it's not going to end well for anybody in China when this thing finally collapses. Because
it was never going to. There was no scenario in which China came out of this intact. They have run a system that has a shelf life that ends in apocalypse.
Yeah, there is no way to keep their system going. I cannot think of one, even playing devil's advocate, how I would fix it other than literally deregulate everything and become a proper capitalist society tomorrow. And that might buy you some time until you have to reboot the economy eventually because you've just screwed it up so bad with this. Nobody will be able to tell the price of anything naturally without the government's help in China.
It's a simple thought experiment to do. Everybody knows that there is no such thing as a perpetual motion engine, and controlled economy, controlled to its most absolute extent, as the Chinese have attempted to accomplish, is an attempt to build a perpetual motion machine, a way to get infinite wealth out of constructing a machine well enough. That doesn't work. You can't make it work.
Yep. And it's not going to work if they can't get their actual currency with value from outside their country. That's why, despite having all these people that could do all these wonderful jobs and do them for the Chinese, it doesn't matter. None of that matters because they don't provide any wealth to the country.
If you want to compare it to like the American ideal is that one innovator could take down the big dog.
Yeah,
but in China, the big dog has the government standing behind them with guns.
The big dog is the government, no matter what industry you're in.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's why I say it's a model economy. It's a model of an economy. It's been constructed to have all of the features in appearance of an economy and to operate in the way an economy does, but it's all as sort of like a pet. It's like it's designed to operate as an exemplar of what they think an economy should look like, and doesn't generate naturally and can't self-perpetuate.
And even if you did take down the government in an industry, let's say you invented the iPhone before iPhones were a thing, and you were Papple, the Chinese knockoff, and you beat Bill Jobs to it, and you sell your Papple Pi phone, and it's a big hit all over the world. You've got the power and the money to take down the big dog and be the leader in the market, right? No, government now owns you. You've just become a part of its machine, because if you don't, you get shot.
Yeah, then you will
totally buy a Pi phone.
You will find yourself merged into the same superstructure that all the other phone companies are part of. Like if you look at the phone market in China, there are a huge number of very high quality phones produced by a large number of different companies. I have one myself because I can't afford to buy other types of phones. Although I'm going to have to just take an ethical stand on it at this point, and the next one won't come from China. But they have probably about 2 or 3 times as many different producers of phones in China as the entire rest of the mobile phone market put together.
Or at least they give the appearance that they do.
But they are all tame pets being kept in a stable.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There is no market domination. Like, the biggest one is Huawei by a reasonably substantial margin, and Xiaomi is the next after that. But the differences between them aren't very big. And Huawei is mainly big because they are used as a weapon against the rest of the world. They serve another purpose. That's why they get more government funding. But all the rest of them, they all seem to be roughly in the same category of size. They produce roughly the same quality products with roughly the same features. You could say, oh, well, there's lots of different companies. That means there's competition, right? No, this is a painting of competition. It's a working model of what competition looks like. It's not an actual competition.
Yep. So, this bringing it back to the EO. This EO is huge, and this EO is broad, and any rule in it could be extrapolated to mean don't do business with China. Period. From now on, you can keep your current investments, but any future things you do cannot be done with China, and you will have to read through the entire thing.
It is pretty
and
dense.
Only place I've seen people, the only place with any kind of intellectual discussion besides this show that I've seen any talk of this stupid thing is the farms.
Well, that's because the farms are autistic. They love picking apart crap like this.
Like, nobody is talking about this. The Donald isn't talking about this. Obviously, none of the MSM are talking about this. But
well, the Donald isn't exactly a place for discussion. The Donald is a place for having a laugh.
Yes. And normally they will at least catch wind of this kind of thing and post some memes about it, but I haven't seen anything other than a few people taking quotes from Bill Barr's speech out of context. That was an evil empire, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall tier speech.
It was a good speech.
Nobody is talking about it.
I thought that they would jump on it. I thought that they would use this as their big let's demonize Bill Barr moment.
But they're scared because it involves China. They don't want to touch it. That is a third rail. Yeah. If they get near it, they could tick off their Chinese overlord. And they don't know whose side they need to back in this fight yet. Even though the answer to us is incredibly obvious, they're still hesitant because of how much money the Chinese invest in literally everything. These companies, these individuals in these companies especially, receive funding as workaround bribes directly from the Chinese government and individuals and higher up in the companies at Chinese governments. They keep it on their dang donation page. You can see it. These people are terrified of China being suddenly kicked out of the market, and they know they have to address it. But coming out actively in support or against this EO is political suicide right now. Mm-hmm. Because of the state of the economy in the world, especially after they hyped up Wu Flu. There is no reasonable way they can talk to it. So while the reasons for most people keeping silent about this are clear, I think the fact that they are silent is more important than nobody talking about it, as long as there are some people like us willing to get the word out, because it shows just how bad the problem actually is. That was a bit of a word salad, but
it was a bit. But that's okay.
I think I got my point across pretty decent there.
Yeah.
Pay attention to this. Don't forget about this.
Yeah. For as far as our media over here, we haven't heard too much about it. Like the one that's only actually worth watching. They mentioned it, but we got the ABC, which way too many people watch it. They're just still going Orange Man bad.
Yeah, I don't watch the media because it's just a mixture of Orange Man bad and the Jacinda Ardern praise hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is something worth paying attention to, because
actually a lot of our media hates Jacinda Ardern.
I think that she's an eminently hateable person for anybody who cares about their country at all or
Yeah.
has any kind of standards whatsoever, because she clearly doesn't have any clue what she's doing. But she's extremely good at passing the blame on to other people. It's her one marketable skill, is that she can get other people to be blamed for things that she has done wrong.
Yeah. But, yeah, as far as the China stuff, it's kind of been overshadowed by our China problems.
As far as I can...
They are at the US for at the moment. They're even more pissed at Australia.
Yeah, this is because Australia didn't mince their words. Like, if Bill Barr was mincing his words compared to what Australia did, which was to just impose sanctions,
Yeah.
they didn't bother to make an evil empire speech. Just like they did the equivalent of beginning to fire ICBMs before a declaration of war happened. But in New Zealand, as far as I can tell, they're torn between the fact that Labour in New Zealand, you don't need to win a majority of anything in order to be the government.
Mm.
You don't need an electoral college majority. You don't need a voter majority. You don't need anything. All you need is to convince enough people to help you be the government. The last election, Labour didn't win a majority. National won more seats than they did. But they managed to cobble together support, and the largest chunk of support that they managed to get was from Winston Peters. Winston Peters is one of the longest serving politicians in New Zealand, probably. He's been a politician for as long as my memory reaches. He's been in government for most of that time, and he hates the Chinese. He absolutely has a blistering hatred of the Chinese because he's very, very anti-foreign investment. He doesn't like the idea of any land getting sold to the Chinese. He doesn't like the idea of Chinese setting up water bottling plants. He doesn't like the Chinese setting up here at all. He's been anti-Chinese and accused of racism for it many, many, many times over the years. I'm inclined to decide with him on that matter because I don't like... generally speaking, I'm anti-immigration on average. But he's the main figure that Labour needs to supply their support to continue being the government and getting their bills through. However, Labour has adopted a policy on China which is, as far as I can tell, if Donald Trump says China is bad, then China must be good.
Ugh.
So they're torn between, we need to say Orange Man bad as often as possible, and if we say Orange Man bad and try and cozy up to China, Winston will kick us to the curb and we'll be in trouble, and there'll be a national government because he will do whatever is necessary to stab us in the back for stabbing him in the back.
Orange Man, incorrect.
I don't agree with a lot of Winston Peters' policies, but I have voted for him before because I know that he is the most massively vindictive, predictably vindictive son of a bitch in government. Like,
Nice.
you know what he is going to do because it will involve serving his interests to the maximum. And if you can position him on the boards such that his intervention is to your advantage, well, then he's a useful piece to have. I voted for him because I knew either he would go with National and you would get a national government instead of a Labour government, or he would go with Labour. And if he went with Labour, he would put a collar on a lot of Labour's most destructive policies because he would just take his ball and go home if they tried to defy him.
Yeah, either way, he'd still rustle some jimmies, and that's worth it on its own.
Yeah,
Anyway.
he's always ruffling jimmies.
Yes.
But yeah, so New Zealand hasn't taken a stance on China, an open and definitive stance on China, simply because the government is too busy taking care of itself and not paying attention to the country.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, we should probably bring this back around. With all these sanctions going against, let's face it, large gaming companies, any idea of what's actually going to happen?
I think the most noticeable thing that is likely to happen is that hardware prices will shoot through the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Particularly for phones.
They're going to go all over the place, and they're going to spike hard. The companies are going to realize they will broach the price point easily when they have to pay for labor on these things because they want to keep their profit margins the same. And right now they are paying like 5 cents for the labor on each phone. If that jumps to even $1 to make the same margins, they will have to triple or quadruple the price of electronic devices.
If they want to keep the same margin, yeah. which is,
And
let's face it, ridiculous.
That's what they care about, because they bought into the lie of perpetual growth. And they are going to overshoot the price, and then they are going to realize nobody's buying their stuff. Their stocks are going to tank anyway, and they have to realize this is just a cost of doing business. They cannot sell it this high, and it will go down to a median price between the two prices, and that may or may not be enough to keep people in the market. They'll probably lower it slightly more after that with the next release of whatever, and it's going to be at least twice as much as what you pay now.
The only way you can accomplish perpetual growth is with perpetual innovation, and in a controlled economy, you can't have innovation.
Mm-hmm. And this has just been a buffer for them to not have to pay to build anything effectively.
Like the Steve Jobs might have been a shitty technologist, but he was a brilliant businessman. But what good business decisions, what decisive market entries have you seen Apple make since he died?
Yeah. Bad ones. Yeah. Very bad ones that have not played over with the public.
Like they don't remember any. The advantages that they once had, the sort of like the market insight that Jobs had for carving out a name for his company in the market, that doesn't exist. That talent isn't there anymore in Apple. They have traded entirely on basically finding the cheapest slave labor available and marketing on the basis of fashions. And if the culture should take a turn because they go into a period of scarcity due to economic sanctions, well, they're not going to be able to push that barrel anymore.
And it should be noted, in the U.S., sanctions have a legal terminology that is often used to argue. These are not formal sanctions, but they are functionally sanctions.
Yeah, like the sanction, I'm using sanction as a descriptive rather than a legal term.
Yeah,
because the sanctioning is clearly what's happening here.
All right.
Yeah, limiting the ability for people to interact with a foreign power is sanctioning.
Yeah, this is a standard sort of wartime tactic you would make when you have identified someone as the enemy and you don't need people giving, aid and comfort to the enemy.
Yeah, this is big stuff. Tell your friends about it. Tell them to look at it. Find that Kiwi Farms thread.
Considering that China is basically, there is nothing that Nazi Germany did that China hasn't done. So I don't understand why people have given them such a favorable review.
Yeah. It is just because the labor was so cheap and the materials so cheap, relatively speaking.
It's like the West is collectively guilty of turning a blind eye to evil again and again and again and again, simply because the slaves were convenient. The Chinese slaves were convenient.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
This makes serious business.
The TLDR, China just got its butt reamed by a whale's reproductive organ wrapped in sandpaper with no lube.
That's graphic.
And a whole lot of U.S. companies were in the way of that whale reproductive organ. And they're the people that get you stuff. So
you're not allowed to make metaphors anymore. Ever.
Oh, I stole that one from the politics board in the summary I posted from the farms that somebody said.
Well, that's all dependent on how this is implemented and enforced, though. And I am expecting that there is going to be, several years of backlog at the Supreme Courts after this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I will imagine they will do their best to enforce it, but realistically, every company in the U.S. violates this every single day, and that's going to be very difficult to make work. Although I am quite happy if every single major company gets reamed right now, because all the small businesses have died. Thanks to WuFlu. So fair play, making a fair playing field seems okay.
The halcyon days of every Western nation has always been under the nation of shopkeepers philosophy. Mm-hmm. And you can't have that when everything is an enormous Chinese-owned conglomerate.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to have to see real innovators come back up in the smaller markets. It will not be as advantageous for the super giant.
You say that as a thing that we will have to do, but this is rather than they will have to. Like, this is finally an opportunity to.
Yeah.
Like innovation, you don't need to be Elon Musk to innovate anymore. Like why has Elon Musk been so successful with his innovation? It's because he has enough money not to care about those other interests.
Yeah.
If the big money that would keep innovation under wraps suddenly doesn't have the power to intervene anymore, then you can start to see innovation rising up. You can start to see the titans in the market going to have to defend themselves for once.
Yep. They'll have to compete again instead of just, releasing the iPhone 12, which is the iPhone 11, but without headphone ports or something.
No, I think they did away with headphone ports a while ago.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, I don't have a clue what number we're on.
I made it my business to only purchase phones with a headphone port.
Yeah.
I
So, yeah.
I'm not going to pay extra for you to take a feature away from me. What are you talking about?
Yep.
All right, let's wrap this up.
So yeah. All right, folks. I will dump the cavalcade of pictures into the live show chat about this thing again. I post them in the politics board, but some of y'all might have a heart attack from anxiety if you have to dig through there.
Yeek.
You might get a little triggered. So
Hey, we keep that board pretty clean.
all
It could
things
be a
considered,
lot worse.
we are fairly calm, but
Like
it
if
is
you
still
compare,
that if you want
say,
to
our
hate
chat
Ari
lines to the
forever,
politics board,
one day those are going to get leaked by Discord, and we're going to be dead. But
I'll
yeah.
need to come to your state and we can hole up in the Bernie bunker.
That's how bad it is. We have to build our own bigger Bernie bunker after that.
Build a bigger, better bunker. No, can't do it.
Build a bigger, better Bernie bunker. That's
There
a
you
tongue
go.
twister. So yeah, folks. We're already super overtime, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. But I thought that was really important to get out there because nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to know.
Oh, they
it's
will.
actually-
They will.
Oh, they will. So we'll know the impact of it when it hits. But for now, you just got to wait and see.
It starts going into effect at the end of the month. So everybody has a month to try and figure out weaselly ways around it, but I don't think they'll be successful with how broad that thing is.
Yeah, it's so broad, I can't see a way around it.
Yeah.
It's just
So
yeah, it's just hitting everything with the same brush rather than trying to nitpick.
Well, the thing is that there is only one target, and that's China, the CCP.
Yeah.
Like, they are all one entity.
yeah, you have to remember every entity in China is the CCP or owned by the CCP.
Yes.
So yeah. All right, folks. Email topic of the week. I do want to hear your opinions on the CEO. I want you to take a quick glance at it and write us about it and what you think this will do specifically to the entertainment industry.
Oh.
As I'm genuinely want to have more discussion about this thing because it just is. There's none of it right now, and it's something I think everybody should really be talking about.
And given the scope of the thing, it's ripe for some wild speculation.
Oh yeah. Go crazy.
Yeah. So I will happily read that on the show. So you got a real email topic for once. All right, closing comments and let's wrap up.
I wonder what Alex Jones thinks about all this.
Oh, I haven't checked
Something
him lately.
completely wacky, no doubt.
It is probably afraid the EO is going to turn the frogs gay again.
I didn't listen to it because I just saw it go by on Twitter, but I saw a video clip of him just walking around his studio surrounded by llamas.
Why?
I don't know.
Alex Jones,
How could you ban this person from YouTube? My goodness.
he knows he's a meme, and he has fully embraced it. He embraced it before he got banned.
That's where the game frogs came from, I guess.
It's hard to tell if it came before or
Yeah.
after he realized
Chickens
it
and
was a meme.
eggs.
His shtick is do over-the-top character, make funny noises, and slam the
He's-
paper around.
It's just the pro wrestling equivalent for a news organization. Like as pro wrestling is to real martial arts, so is Alex Jones to journalism. Like you still need to be incredibly fit, incredibly strong, and incredibly talented, but everything that you do is about the performance.
It's all entertainment.
Yep. Although it's scary how much Alex Jones has been proven right over the last, especially year and a half.
You say that, but all you need to do is look at the Babylon Bee to see that that's just the reality of the world we live in now.
It's just gotten so dumb that the satire and parody people are telling you the truth and can't make anything up anymore.
Babylon Bee released an article recently saying that they were only going to write positive things from now on because their powers of prophecy will allow them to bring that into existence.
Oh, please do.
I thought I saw something like that.
We need some positivity.
All right, folks. We will see y'all next week with more media and hopefully some news on stuff. Sayonara. Bye-bye.